This conference will now be recorded.
Finally, here we go. We are in time. Let's get started with our program, MLOps Specialization course demo session. So here, you guys are here to understand what is this MLOps Specialization course, what is the duration, what we're going to cover, and what is really MLOps is in a first hand. Okay, so let's get started with our actual program and a quick details about this particular program. So this program is for the next 2 hours from this particular minute. So please make sure you don't leave the meeting, otherwise you're definitely going to lose a lot of things. Okay, there are 3 things that I want to highlight in this particular program, so which will not make you leave from this particular meeting. So one is obviously, so people who are going to stay till end of this particular program, so they're going to enjoy the live hands-on the demo that I'm going to provide on top of AWS Cloud Platform, where I have built end-to-end MLOps pipelines, so you can able to understand what's MLOps pipeline looks in a production level. So then, if you stay till end of this particular session, so you can able to download the free ebooks on this MLOps, I mean, from various different cloud platforms. So it's completely for free. And the third important things, people are going to stay till end of this particular program. So they're going to get an awesome discounts to register for our MLOps specialization program. So this is going to happen only you stay till end of this particular program. So let's get started without wasting much of your time. So before we getting started with our actual program, so always I want to understand my audience, definitely. Okay, so before we getting started, okay, in case if my screen is visible for you, in case if my audio is clear enough, can you please use your chat window? Can you please confirm me by saying yes in the chat window? Let's ensure that you're receiving a quality audio and a good screen share from my side. Thank you so much, Navin and Chandrika, for confirming. That's good. So now let's move on to the next very important question that I want to ask. Okay, perfect. Here we go. So you might be joining from various different parts of the world. Thank you so much, first of all, for making your time. So your valuable time will be really it will be enjoyable, and you're going to take out a lot of things from this particular program. That's I can able to make a promise. So here you might be joining from various different parts of the world, and probably you might be enjoying your weekend, and so this is going to be really enjoyable moment as part of your particular weekend. Okay, so let's get started. So first, we would like to always understand my audience. Okay, so you might be a data engineer, you might be a data scientist, you might be a software engineer, you might be a DevOps person. So joining for some reason, you're believing that this is going to really help your career, right? So first, let's try to understand who you are. In case if you're a data scientist, in case if you're an ML engineer, or if you're a working professional, if you're a student, please do mention who you are in the chat window. Let's try to understand how many data scientists we have in our group, or how many DevOps people we have in our group. Let's get started. Go ahead and use your chat window. Let's see how many people we have. Here we have a first message from Kushwant. He says he's a DevOps engineer. Awesome. So here we have Ashwini. So it says data scientist. That's awesome. Here, okay, a lot of messages pouring inside, so I couldn't able to read. Okay, then we have Mohan Krishna, DevOps. Satish says he's a DevOps engineer. PSK says he's a lecturer. That's awesome. Pawan says data analyst intern. That's perfect. So Sashwant says he's a data scientist. Shaurabh says he's a lead data scientist. That's awesome. Ahmad says a junior data scientist. Scrum manager, KPM says. And Chandrika says I'm a ServiceNow product manager. That's awesome. Then we have Naveen Kumar says data analyst. Okay, so then we have data scientist, tech support lead. Shivam says analyst. Raju says senior Python developer. That's awesome. Then we have Abdul says DevOps student. That's awesome. Then we have okay, some names I couldn't read. Ekshan says it's a DevOps engineer. Then we have Harish, sorry, says he's a student. Yua says data engineer. Harshad says technical support engineer. Manoj Kumar says junior data scientist. That's awesome. That's awesome. A lot of messages I could able to see. That's awesome. So now we could come to a conclusion. Okay, a lot of data scientists, a lot of data engineers, a lot of DevOps professionals, and data analysts too, right? So more people's over here. Okay, let's get started with our program without wasting much of time. Okay, so I just want to know my audience pretty much clear, because so I can able to deliver this content pretty much in a next level. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, who am I? First of all, a quick introduction about me. So yeah, so probably you should able to see myself. Yeah, so probably on my camera, this is Sharath. Hello everyone. So I'm a founder and CEO of Citron Technologies. I will be your trainer for next 2 hours. So where you're going to learn and explore what is exactly MLOps and what does a future looks like if you have MLOps skills on top of your resume. Okay, so make sure you stay till end of this particular program to gain most amount of the stuff from this particular program. So saying that, I'm just going to disable my camera, otherwise it's going to like have a screen, I mean my screen towards the left side, so once you receive recordings it's going to be a mess. Okay, so we are into two stuff. I mean, so we do most of the stuff. I mean, so we are into retail and corporate training, and we also provide services for organizations. So personally, I have trained more than 5,000 plus peoples like you, working professionals, like migrating to data science, data engineering, ML engineering, MLOps fields, and again becoming a specialist on top of ML, AI, cloud platform, and specifically MLOps. Okay, so more about us later in our program. I mean, yeah, so let's get started. So let me just turn off my camera. Let's get started right now. Perfect, here we go. What are the highlights of this particular program? So the three highlights, how the way we're going to travel in this particular demo session. The first thing is we're going to understand what is really MLOps is, right? So what is this machine learning operations otherwise? So what it takes to master MLOps for you, okay? And what does a job opportunities looks like? How does your career looks like once you have an MLOps on top of your resume, okay? So let's get started, okay? So whatever the session that we conduct, we do start with this beautiful picture, right? You might think this is completely unrelated to the program, but there's some relations over there. Okay, let's get started. I want you guys to observe this particular picture. Okay, here is a task for you guys. Okay, I want you guys to observe this particular picture for the next 10 seconds. That's it. Okay, then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions so you can answer that. Okay, let's get started. Try to observe this particular picture. That's it for the next 10 seconds. Go ahead. Okay, obviously there is nothing much to observe in 10 seconds over there in this particular picture, right? It's not a rocket science what I'm asking, like it's just a very simple picture. Okay, here is the task for you guys. What do you think this picture is about? Go ahead and use your chat window to describe this particular picture. Let's make this session more interactive. Go ahead. What do you think this picture is about? Use your chat window, try to describe this. What kind of objects that you could able to recognize? What do you think this picture is about in the first hand, right? So what do you see in this particular picture? Here we go. Manoj says it's a park. Sundar says, sorry, Sudhaka says it's a park. KPM says it's a park. And here we have Kushwan says park where people come with their dogs and enjoy their. What an awesome description, right? That's awesome. But so everyone knows that this is the picture of a park, right? This is a beautiful picture. We can see a lot of different objects that you could able to capture from it, right? But that's not my question actually. So that's not my question. My question is something different. Okay, here I want you to think, how do you know this is a picture of a park, right? How do you know this is a picture of a park? How do you know this is a picture of a man? And how do you know this is a picture of a dog? And how do you know this is a picture of a woman? And how do you know this is the path, I mean, where we can walk? And how do you know this is the grass, I mean, trees, and this is a grass? Like, my question is pretty much simple. Like, how did you know that, right? How did you know this is a dog? How do you know this is a different breed of a dog and a dog which is carrying a ball in his mouth, right? So try to imagine this. Okay, so how do you know this? In a first time, try to imagine this and try to describe this in a chat window if you can. Okay, so definitely we understand, right? Definitely we could able to recognize these things, right? So you can see Satish says we learned in that way, right? Kushwan says because our brain sees these pictures. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's try to compare this with what we call it as today an AI, data science, machine learning, blah blah blah, all those stuff. Okay, so but let's try to think in a different way, right? Sudhakar says now in a chat window, labeling. Chandrika says neural network. That's an awesome description, isn't it? That's good. Nitya says a predictive model. That's good. Okay, but now let's try to display this particular picture to a newborn baby. Maybe he or she might be less than 1 year old. Okay, let's say I'm going to take this particular picture. I'm going to show this particular picture to that particular baby, right? So can a baby recognize this? It's a picture of a park. I can see a dog. I can see a men walking, spending a time. Probably not. It's impossible, isn't it? Right? So what's really happening? Let's consider a newborn baby, like born with like a fresh brain. There's nothing in it, right? So what happens when the baby started growing? So he or she might be started learning things. He will start learning how to walk, how to speak. He start learning from his parents, right? Just consider that next the person grows. Let's say he will go to a primary school. He will start learning physics, chemistry, biology, started understanding peoples, the world, right? And again, once the people grows, each and every day we learn something really good, right? We learn something really awesome things, right? See what happens eventually when we started learning things, we could able to make some predictions, we could able to take our decisions. The best example is you attending this particular meeting, right? So let's say you decided to spend your valuable time for the next 2 hours in this particular session, believing that Sharath is going to deliver something really awesome in terms of MLOps that's really going to be benefited for you, right? So that's it, right? So we are the best examples of what we calling as AI or maybe data science and ML in today's world, right? But what exactly our human beings are trying to do, the way we could able to learn a data, right? The way we could able to learn a data and we could able to make some futuristic predictions. So human beings trying to replicate the same things. So you want to teach the same exact things what we have learned to this dumb machines, and this dumb machine should be able to make some predictions. It should be able to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? Exactly. But let's try to put it in an example where everyone could be able to understand in pretty much a good way. Okay, so let's say here we have a data, right? So we consume a data first of all, right? As a human beings, we consume a data in many different fashions, right? So for example, let's say we consume a data through our visuals, I mean through our eyes. We consume a data through our ears as an audio. Let's say we consume let's say data through our sense by touch, in many different ways. Similarly, a machine could able to consume a data in many different fashions. Let's say we'll take a document, right? Let's say we take a CSV file, for example, right? So let's say this is a CSV file. So what kind of a data I have in this particular CSV file? Yes, let's say I have collected a data from your home. I mean, let's say I put up a sensors on your home. Let's say I collected an electricity consumption pattern from your home. Let's say I collected how much electricity does your washing machine, what a geyser, air conditioning unit, whatever it is, whatever the electrical and electronic appliances that you have in your home. Let's say I collected all this data, and again the bill patterns that you might have paid. I mean, so now let's consider that I have 3 years of data. Let's say I have some 30,000 data points. Okay, so my goal is pretty much simple here. So I want to take this data, I want to teach this data to this machine. So this machine tries to understand the various different patterns from that particular data. So once a machine learns everything from this data, so then it produces something called machine learning model. So then I'm going to ask this ML model to predict, let's say I'm going to ask this machine to forecast what will be my electricity bill consumption pattern. I mean, how much electricity bills that I'm going to pay for the next 6 months. So what would my first month electricity bill looks like? What would my second month electricity bill looks like? What would be my 6th month electricity bill looks like? Let's say here we are looking forward for forecasting, right? Just imagine this. What if a machine could able to predict what will be the, I mean, what is the amount of electricity bill, the bills that you're going to pay for the next 6 months, right? So this is, we call it as an example of machine learning, right? Data science or something, right? So otherwise, let's say we want to, instead of teaching a data, a tabular data, let's say my goal is, let's say I want to teach my machine a difference between apple or orange. I want to teach a difference for my machine, a difference between, let's say, an apple and mango, right? So let's say I have a bunch of pictures of cat, and let's say I have a bunch of pictures of dogs, for example, right? Let's say I take all those pictures, let's say I try to teach the difference between these cats and dogs, right? So then once my machine understands the difference between a cat and dog, let's say I put up a camera, let's say I put up a camera in front of my machine, let's say I put a cat in front of my machine. So then I'm going to ask my machine to predict what kind of object that you could able to predict, right, in front of your camera. Just try to predict it, right? So this is what we call it as let's say a computer vision, right? Or anything that we can do with images and videos, right? So for example, let's say today we are in an age of AI already, right? So it's AI or whatever the things that we're talking about. It's not something that's going to happen in the next 5 years or 6 years, which is actually happening today, right? So today in your smartphone, you have a face unlocking system. I mean, if you could able to bring your friend facing a selfie camera, it could able to, let's say, unlock your face. It could able to recognize your face. It could able to unlock your face, for example, right? So then otherwise we could talk about voice assistant services that you have, like let's say Amazon Alexa, it may be Apple Siri, it may be Google Voice Assistants, it may be, for example. Those are the good examples, right? Okay, that's good. So this is something that we are already understand. So we understand what is exactly machine learning is, right? There's no doubt about it, right? So we use various different programming languages. We use various different techniques, right, in order to build our actual ML model, right? So the question is, we might use Python, we might use R, right? You might use JavaScript or C++ or anything, right, in order to build a very successful ML model, right? So, but The question is what it takes to build a very successful ML model. So my question is what it takes a Netflix and organizations like Netflix and organizations like Redbus, it may be organized like Uber, what it takes for them to build a very successful ML model. In order to understand that, we need to understand a typical workflow of building an ML model. Okay, let's try to understand that. Okay, so here we go. As I mentioned, like the way we consume our data in many different fashions, like we consume our data through our ears, through our eyes, through visuals, in many different ways. A machine could also consume our data in many different ways. Your data can be a format of a picture, like a JPEG. Your data can be a CSV files, as we are talking about. Let's say your data can be a JSON document, or your data can be, let's say, a simple text files, for example, right? Isn't it? Okay, that's good. So now we have a data, that's good. So what we do next, right? So we go to something called preparation, otherwise data preparation. So what we do in data preparation, pretty much simple. So what we do in kitchen, right? What we do, how do we cook a food, right? So it's as simple as that. So let's say let's say we want to cook our favorite dish, right? What we do, let's say we bring a lot of vegetables from a market. Let's say then we clean that vegetables, we remove unnecessary stuff, and we put some masala ingredients, and we start cooking a food, right? That's what exactly we do in cooking. So data preparation is exactly similar to that, right? So when we get a real-time data that is coming from your customers, it comes with a lot of garbage in it. You might have something called missing data, you have something called outliers, right? So we started preparing, we use different tools to start preparing it, cleaning it, transforming it if it is necessary, right? That's what we do in data preparation. Then comes, we do use IDEs, like it can be a Jupyter notebooks, it can be a VS Code, something like this, right? So this is where we start writing our code. So we might use, let's say, the programming languages, like we might use Python, we might use R, we might use JavaScript, or whatever the whatever the programming languages that is more feasible for your use case. Let's say we use the program to build, to mention what kind of a machine that I'm going to use, because here the concept is pretty much simple. We're going to take a data, we're going to teach the data to a machine. So what kind of a machine that you're going to pick? So we're going to mention everything in that particular script, right? So then we're going to call that particular machine that we have picked, and then we're going to start feeding a data that we have collected, that we have cleaned, that we have prepared, for example, right? So this is where we started teaching a machine a data. So machine tries to understand the various different patterns from that particular data. So once a machine has got completely trained on top of that data, so then a machine produces something called ML model. Okay, so then a machine going to produce something called ML model, actually, right? So now what is next? So now we have an ML model. So what we're going to do next, actually, right? So then we're going to register this ML model on a model registry. Okay, so 1 second, here we go. So few participants are saying, okay, the audio is not clear. So can you please guys confirm, in case if my audio is clear enough, in case if my screen is pretty much clear for you guys, can you please do acknowledge saying yes in the chat window? So we'll get started by getting a quick acknowledgement. Thank you, Ashwini, for confirming. Thank you, Nitya. So people, if you are facing any issues with an audio and let's say a screen share, I would suggest you to just rejoin the meeting once again by leaving it. So that should be able to fix your problem. Okay. Thank you so much for acknowledging. So now let's get started with this. So now I said, like, once your models has been trained, so then we're going to use something called model registries. So what is this model registries? Model registries are tools that we're going to use in order to version our ML models. What do you mean by that? So as a data scientist, today you don't train one ML model, so you might produce a couple of ML models. So where are you going to store these ML models? Are you going to zip file it, going to put it on your laptop? Is that how it's going to work? No. So there are procedures, there are good practices. We're going to use tools like model registries in order to version our ML models. So then once we have our model registries where we have versioned our ML models, in the next step, we'll be getting started with deployment, actually. So what is this deployment? Let's say you have an ML model. So let's say now you want to deploy your ML models on a real-time endpoint on a cloud platform. Let's say you want to deploy your ML model on a Docker service, on a Kubernetes service, on a serverless framework, whatever it is that you want, right? Let's say each and every organization has different requirements at the end of the day. So we have where you want to deploy your ML models. So let's consider that we have deployed our ML model somewhere in Docker or maybe Kubernetes or maybe real-time endpoint. So what happens next? That's good. So now this is where our developers comes into the picture. So this is, they're going to build a very beautiful applications, right? So finally they're going to integrate everything. So here they might build web application, an Android application, or whatever it is, where your clients comes and utilize your ML model, right? So this would be a typical workflow, a minimum requirement for you to build a successful ML model. But isn't it? Is this all about MLOps? Probably not. So then what is really MLOps is? So what it takes to build a very solid MLOps pipeline, which can definitely bring a success to any organization. To understand this, we need to understand what is MLOps, right? Okay, let's get started. Here comes a very important slide. Before we understanding what is really MLOps is, first we need to understand what is the current state of machine learning today in this world. Today in this world, 2023, right? So we need to understand what's really happening in every organization or what they did last 10 years, for example, right? So that definitely gains us a more insight. Okay, so in order to understand the current state of machine learning, we need to do a time travel to last 10 years, to the last decade. Who is interested to do time travel? Yeah, anyway, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's try to understand what just happened last decade. I mean, last 10 years. Okay, so last 10 years, just consider at that particular point, every organizations or maybe every startups at that particular point, they had a lot of data sitting in their organizations. Actually, I mean, a lot of data they have, but they are doing nothing with that particular data. So what they did, so at that particular time, they started understanding we could able to build or add some value out of the data. They started hiring a lot of data engineers or maybe data scientists. But the goal in last 10 years for every organization is to build ML model actually. So operationalizing that ML model into production, it's not actually the plan. I mean, no organizations at that particular point, they're not making any revenues. Their models are not into production. That's good. Then what's happening today? If you're trying to understand today, 53% of an organizations who has a POC, a proof of concept, they are making into production. It takes an average of 9 months to reach that particular point. So what makes a 53% of an organizations to move to production? What's happening at the back end or what's happening around the background? What we call it as an MLOps. Let's try to understand that later. So then by end of 2024, I'm talking about 2024, which is not next 5 years or next 10 years. I'm talking about just just a 1 year from now, right? 75% of our organizations will definitely shift from piloting to operationalizing their AI. I mean, finally, they will be getting into production. That's what it takes. That's good. Then what is the MLOps? Still, we don't get it, right? What is MLOps? Let's get started. What is this MLOps, which stands for machine learning operations? MLOps is basically a set of practices. I mean, it's a practice for collaboration and communication between various different stakeholders who are part of building ML models actually. Okay, what do you mean by that? So let's have a discussion on this. Who do you think who is responsible for a success for ML model here? I mean, do you think as a data scientist is the only person who does everything in an organization? Or like data scientist is the only person who builds ML model and I mean, who ensures the success? Definitely not. Who are the stakeholders are part of building ML projects here? There are different stakeholders in various different organizations. So there are data engineers, for example, right? So who works on top of a data. They started pulling up a data, they build data pipelines, right? They started cleaning the data, preparing it, right? Transforming it if it is necessary. So then comes our data scientist who takes the data, builds an ML model, optimize it, hyperparameter tune it, and produces the best quality of an ML model. Then comes our ML engineers who takes that ML model and let's say we go and deploy it in a deployment environment, integrate it with the CI/CD pipelines and other stuff, right? So MLOps is all about a collaboration and communication between a different stakeholders who are part of building ML models actually. So let's say applying this best practices, what we call it as an MLOps, definitely it could able to increase the quality and simplifies the management process of way you build and deliver your ML models. MLOps, it's pretty much simple. It's all about automation that you're going to build for delivering your ML models. Pretty much simple. So an automation for you to deploy your machine learning models or maybe deploying your deep learning models to a large scale production environment. That's what we call it as MLOps at the end of the day. Okay, so now let's get started. Let's dive deep into MLOps. Let's try to understand why it is really important. Now let's try to understand MLOps in high level, the high level motivation of MLOps. So as we are discussing, MLOps is a discipline that sits intersection between various domains of stakeholders here. For example, various domains, if you consider, let's say the domains of machine learning, DevOps, and data engineering, for example, where the intersection, what we call it as MLOps, machine learning operations otherwise. So let's say this intersection of these practices they comes together, which really drives how we build, deliver, and manage your machine learning models actually. Okay, so when it comes to MLOps as a discipline, it's enabled by the core set of practices, definitely what we call it as a people and process and technology, what we call it as MLOps practices. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, now let's try to understand what are the challenges in MLOps. So what makes MLOps implementation is really challenging. Okay, let's get started. So MLOps challenges. So before we talking about the challenges, let's try to understand something about what are the challenges that we face in the process of building an ML models, right? So we understand that in the process of creating and managing machine learning workflows, we ran into a lot of different challenges actually, right? So we know that ML model building involves multiple steps actually, right? So the steps, like it can be a data preparation steps, it can be model training steps, it can be model deployment steps, it can be, right? So not only we have these steps, and there are a lot of things, I mean, goes around into stitching different workflows together actually, right? So here the goal for us to stitch each and every stuff, I mean, we want our data preparation steps has to talk to our model training steps, and our model training steps has to talk to our model deployment steps actually, right? So now let's try to dive deep into this. Let's try to understand the various different challenges here. Okay, where do we get started? Definitely we will get started with data preparation step. Okay, so what do we do usually in data preparation, right? So in your data preparation step, it might contain, let's say, one to many tasks. Let's say taking a raw data sets from your clients, eventually transforming that into a training data set, a testing data set, or evaluation data set. That's what we do, right? Isn't it, in data preparation step? That's good, fair enough. So then what we do in model training step here. So usually in a model training step, you might have some additional steps inside your model training. For example, whether you're doing single model training, or you might be doing running, let's say, multiple different experiments using hyperparameter optimization. So you might produce n number of ML models to get the best version from it, right? That's good. Let's consider that you have a best version of an ML model right now. So now let's move on to the model deployment step. So what do you think we will be doing in a model deployment step? So obviously in your model deployment step, you might have only one step in the workflow, or you could have, let's say, many tasks underneath it actually. It could be a deploy, let's say you want to deploy your ML models on a staging environment. Let's say you want to deploy your ML models on a production ready environment, right? And let's say you might have some different controls inside it, like a manual approval of your ML models or something like that, right? So let's try to understand these steps in even more detail, right? So let's say if you want to deploy your ML model, you will be having various different stages, right? We won't be just having something called production. Let's say, for example, let's say we have an ML model. Let's say we will be having something called dev environment. And let's say then we will be having something called a production environment, for example, right? So what is this, right? What is this? So a dev environment, what I'm talking about, it's an exact copy of a production environment actually. So let's say before we deploying our ML models to a production environment, what we're going to do first, initially we're going to deploy our ML models to dev environment, and then let's say our data scientists or maybe data engineers or maybe senior data scientists, anyone who comes to dev environment, they verify, they test it. Okay, so whether your dev environment is working as you expected as per the KPIs that you're configured. And let's say if you're really satisfied with the results that has been produced by our dev environment, so then you will be approving your ML model to be deployed to a production ready environment. So that's how your model reaches your production. And again, deploying your ML models, mostly we'll do it like a manual approval process. So what do you mean by that? Let's say once you have trained your ML model, so we don't want our ML model just goes and deploys to a production or maybe dev. Instead of that, someone in your team, let's say it may be a senior data scientist or MLOps engineer or someone who has an hierarchy, who comes manually approves your ML model by clicking a button saying that, okay, now go ahead and deploy your ML models to dev or maybe production, right? So that's how it works. So there are a lot of different steps, a lot of different dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides, let's say iteration across the life cycle, the way we build our ML model. And also to provide, let's say, the end-to-end traceability. That's really important, right? It's not just, okay, we prepared, we trained and deployed. we need to ensure we collect logs, metrics in each and every steps actually, right? End-to-end traceability does mean, so we collect a data from logs and metrics from each and every steps, we analyze it, right? So there are a lot of things has to work together. So that's how it's implementing an MLOps, what we call it as difficulties, right? Okay, so the ultimate challenge here, each and every steps has to be stitched together, right? And has to interact with each other. Okay, let's try to talk about that one in detail in upcoming slides. Okay, so whenever we call something called MLOps, there is another related term comes into the picture. We call it as DevOps, right? So most of the people might have heard something called DevOps. So how a DevOps is different from MLOps, right? So let's try to talk about that one. So MLOps challenges similar to DevOps, right? So let's say when we talk about DevOps is all about a system that we follow for a software development lifecycle. Let's say there's a software which has been designed. Let's say I take this software, I want to build it, test it, I want to deliver it. So we follow DevOps. But here, when it comes to machine learning delivery, we use MLOps, right? So that's how it works. So, but when we talk about DevOps, right? So here we have challenges in operationalizing ML models, has some common things considering with the software production. I mean, DevOps and MLOps has some common things, what I'm trying to say. So let's say the tools that we use in DevOps, for example, the traditional tools that we use in DevOps, for example, it can be CI/CD tools or CI/CD practices that we follow in DevOps is common in MLOps, or maybe the tools like source and version control tools that we use in DevOps are common in MLOps. Okay, so we will talk about CI/CD in detail later. So what is the source and version control tools, for example? So let's say as a data scientist in case if you are, or maybe data engineer in case if you are, so we write a lot of scripts, we write a lot of programming, isn't it? So let's say the code, the script that you're going to write, there are chances that this code is going to keep on changing in the future, right? This code never remains exactly same. So how are you going to manage the version for that particular code? Pretty much simple, right? So where are you going to store your code? Are you going to put it in a laptop or something like that, or in your server? No, it doesn't work like that. So this is where tools like source and version control tools, for example, GitHub or maybe Git based workflow, right? So we use tools like GitHub or maybe something on AWS, something on Azure, or something on GCP in order to version our code. Similarly, then comes tracking and versioning your data. What? Tracking and versioning your data? What do you mean by that, right? You might ask a question. So in order to understand the tracking and versioning of data, let me tell you a very simple story. Okay, it's not a bedtime story, don't worry. So it's a tech story, for example. So let's say we do again a time travel to 2019, right? Let's say we have a data scientist, DevOps team, DevOps people, data engineers, and data analysts here. Let's consider that we are building an ML models. Okay, so let's say we are building an ML models for a theater owners. I mean the movie streaming peoples, right? Movie streaming industries. So why you are building an ML model? Let's say you're building an ML model to predict or maybe to forecast what is the revenue they're going to make by selling their tickets. Okay, so building an ML model to forecast the revenue they're going to make. Let's consider that this is happening around 2019. Okay, at that point, let's consider that you didn't care anything about MLOps, right? You didn't care about automation at all. All you did, let's say, build an ML model. You ensured that your model is having a well accurate ML model with good score. And all you did, let's say, you deployed it some kind of a deployment environment. You believed this ML model is going to work completely fine for the next couple of decades, right? That's your belief. But the model didn't work. The model completely become useless in the next 2 months. Why? You might ask a question, right? So due to COVID, right? You know what happened in 2019? That's where the world being hit by coronavirus, right? So no one went to theaters at that particular time because everyone went to lockdown. So then what happened? Why am I providing this example? There's some relation. So you can see that your customer behavior started shifting during your COVID. So we didn't spend time with movie streamings. Theaters. We didn't go for theaters physically. Instead of that, we started subscribing to OTT platforms, right? That's the time we started subscribing to Netflix, Amazon Prime, it may be Hotstar, whatever it is, right? We started spending more time in OTTs because there's no chance for us to go to theaters. So what we need to understand here, your customer behavior before COVID is different and after COVID is different. So why am I talking about your customers or your client? Because your customers are your data, right? Your customers are your data. So what's really happening? Your underlying business environment is changing. Your customers are changing. That means there are high chances that you need to version your data. You need to have a tools specifically in order to version your data. There are tools like DVC. We call it as data version control. There are tools on top of AWS and Azure or GCP that you need to use in order to version your data, right? So then comes, let's say if your data is changing, your model is changing. Let's say you have two versions of your data, then you're going to have two versions of your ML model, isn't it? So you need to also have a tool in order to version your model artifacts and model versions. So model artifacts are basically a metadata that has been produced during your model training process, and again, which has a ML model. So this is where we're going to use tools like, let's say, model registries, right? There are tools on AWS, Azure, and GCP. There are open source tools. We call it as ML, for example, MLflow, right? So where we can able to use an open source tools in order to version your ML model, right? That's perfect. That's good. Okay, so now how do we master in MLOps, right? There are a lot of things, a lot of tools that I'm talking about, right? What it takes to master MLOps. Let's get started with that. So in order to master MLOps, first we need to understand MLOps components, right? We need to understand all the MLOps components. Let's get started. So how does every organization get started? Definitely use case discovery, right? So first of all, they need to have a solid problem, right? A business problem, they convert that into use case, a problem statement, right? So let's consider that they have a viable problem statement to be solved. So then comes data engineering. They ensure they have enough data. They need to have a data pipelines to bring in a data, a lot of stuff. Then comes building a machine learning pipeline. So once you have a data, the data pipelines are ready. So this is where we build a machine learning pipelines according to your client's requirement. So maybe you want to run your workloads on AWS or Azure or GCP. Maybe not all the organizations, they might only use cloud platform. They might use open source tools. What if your organization want to deploy your ML models on a Docker services like open source, like Kubernetes, and maybe they want to use an open source tools like Kubeflow for building open source ML pipelines. Or what if they want to use MLflow, which is an open source tool, right? So they have a different requirements. Based on that, let's say we need to build ML pipelines. That's good. Now, production deployment, as I mentioned, maybe they want to deploy their ML models on Dockers or Kubernetes or something like that. Is that done? Okay, let's say now we have done building data pipelines or maybe ML pipelines. That's good. So now the job is done. Let's say we have deployed our ML models. No, not exactly. So post-deployment challenges comes into picture, like production monitoring, right? So once you deploy your ML models to production, the actual job starts over there. So we need to keep on monitor not just your ML model, the complete infrastructure that you have built, the infrastructure for data preparation, the infrastructure for ML pipelines, the infrastructure for model deployment. We need to monitor everything. That we call it as end-to-end traceability, what we need to have. Let's try to dive deep into each and every components. Let's try to understand that. So the first thing, obviously, business understanding. First of all, a business need to have enough data, a viable problem statement they have to understand. I mean, the use case identification has to happen. So once they have a proper use case, they have to understand the data, their customers, then they do all the feasibility study. If everything goes good, then comes our dear data engineering team. They started doing data preparation. Okay, so the next step, we need to learn about an algorithm, the kind of an algorithm that we're going to use in order to solve this particular problem. So once an algorithm is available, then we will be getting started with a model building and model training step, right? So this is where we started bringing in data that we have cleaned and prepared. We start training our ML models. So then we do various different model experimentation. I mean, we don't produce one ML model until we get the best quality ML model. We started doing hyperparameter tuning, what we used to call. So let's say we figure out the best version of an ML model, and let's say we do model evaluation, we capture metrics. So then we started thinking about serving that ML model to production, deployment, right? So here in deployment, we might deploy our ML model in a various different environments as we discussed. Then we want to build an automation around it, right? So here we are here to understand building an automation on top of, to deliver your ML model. We don't want our data engineers or maybe data scientists each and every time manually running a code, manually producing an ML model, and manually taking this model and manually going and deploying it on top of your service. We don't want that. So we are moving towards an automation where we need automated data preparation, automated model training, automated model evaluation, automated model deployment, automated model monitoring, automated model quality analyzing, identifying drift, and again kicking your pipelines again to retrain another version of your ML model. That's the level of automation that we're looking for. So we want to build that automation and operate it, monitor that and optimize it, learn from it and optimize it. Okay. If we try to dive deep into this, okay, let's say who does this use case identification? Obviously, a business team in your organization, and along with a data scientist in your organization, they started identifying a business problem and they will be translating that into viable problem statement. And they will be having some objectives to be solved by this ML model with the associated KPIs, a key performance indicators, right? So then comes a data engineering. This is where our data engineers, and they will be collaborating with data scientists. They will think how to acquire a data from various sources. Just consider, as an organization, you might not have a data in one single storage platform. So you might be having a data that is coming from a Salesforce database. You might be having an in-house database. Let's say when you accumulate all the data, build a pipeline, maybe you want to do ETL, lot of stuff, right? So then we bring a data, we process that, validate that, transform it if it is necessary. Then comes machine learning pipelines. So in this stage, we design and deploy the pipelines integrated with a complete CI/CD, right? We will talk about CI/CD definitely. So this is where, once the pipelines are available, this is where our data scientists will use these pipelines to conduct various different experimentations and testings. And the platform that we have built, we need to ensure that we keep on track a data and model lineage with the associated KPIs across all the experiments that we are conducting. Then comes production deployment. Let's consider that we have built a very successful, a good quality ML model. So then we need to think about deploying this ML model on a secure and seamless deployment process, and maybe we want to deploy it on public cloud, maybe if you want, or maybe you want to deploy it on premises data centers, or maybe you're looking for a hybrid deployment, for example. That's good. Then what? Then comes production monitoring. So once your model is deployed, the job is not over. The actual job will get started right now. So now we need to keep on monitor our ML model and the complete infrastructure that we have built. What do you mean by infrastructure? The infrastructure that we have built for data preparation, model training, model evaluation, and model deployment, and the pipelines that we're running, right? And we need to keep on monitor continuously with the configured KPIs in order to check if there is any changes in input data distribution or changes in your model performance actually. Okay, saying that, now we will be moving on to the very important slide, which provides you end-to-end clarity on what is this MLOps is really about. Okay, let's get started. The ultimate goal for any organization today, they want to move from and building automated ML workflows to completely incorporated CI/CD practices. This is what every organization has to do. Okay, so what is this the completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines look? So for example, we call it as MLOps maturity levels for any organizations. So they will be getting started from level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So the level 4, what we call it as a fully automated end-to-end MLOps pipelines. So what we do, what is currently every organization's at, they are in level 1 and level 2. I mean, where an organization does everything manually. Let's get started. Let's try to understand what does a level 4 architecture looks like. Okay, let's get started with ML project identification. Obviously, we don't want to talk about all the stories once again. Let's consider that an organization has some use case to get started. They have some enough data to get started. Saying that, the first thing comes with the data. As we discussed, we understand that your data might change. Underlying business environment changes. That means your data gets changing, right? Okay, let's get started. So what kind of a tool that we're going to use in order to version our data, right? We know that our data is going to be changing. So this is where data version control tools comes into the picture. There are different tools, like for example, there is a tool called DVC. There is a tool on AWS. There is a tool on Azure that you could able to use in order to version your data. Perfect. That's good. So what is next? Then comes, let's say, data pre-processing step, or maybe model building step. So what we do over here in data pre-processing step, this is where our dear data engineers comes into the picture. They will be start writing a script, right? Or maybe our data scientist will be start writing a Python script in order to mention what is the hyperparameters they're using, what is the kind of a machine they're using, blah blah blah. I mean, a programming they write. So, and again, this is where a code repositories comes into the picture. What kind of a code repository? It can be GitHub, it can be Azure repositories, it can be code commit on top of AWS, it can be something on GCP, right? So it depends on your organization. We pick a different kind of repositories in order to version our code. Okay, so then what happens next? Let's say we use this script in order to train our ML model, right? So now our model training process gets started. See, as part of a model training, what happens? We pull a data, right? Then we will call a machine, then we will start teaching a data to this machine. So here comes something called feature store. What is this feature store? A feature store is nothing but, putting it in a very layman terms, a feature store is nothing but a schema repository where you have features. A feature store is not a database where you keep your data. A feature store is a repository where you keep features, and you have a data sitting somewhere. By using these features, you query that particular data, then you use the exact features to train your ML model. So what happens next? So once your ML model is ready, this produces something called model artifacts. A model artifacts, a model metadata with your ML model. What happens next? So this is where your model registries comes into the picture. Why do we use model registries? This is where you version your ML models. You might ask a question, Sharad, can't I use GitHub itself to store my ML model, to version my ML model? No, definitely not. GitHub, otherwise the code repositories, what we're talking about, they are not designed to handle large files. Your models can be a large files. So this is where we're going to use tools like model registries in order to version your ML models. Isn't perfect, right? So let's say once you have models in model registry, you might have only one ML model. Let's say you might have n number of models versioned in your model registry. For example, let's say you might have version 1, version 2, or maybe you might have n number of versions, version n, right? That's good. So now let's consider that we pick a best version of our ML model from this model registry, right? So then comes deployment, right? So here, let's say you want to deploy your ML model on a Docker, Kubernetes, endpoint on cloud, or maybe on a serverless framework, right? So let's say we take a best version of an ML model, then let's say we try to deploy it on top of it. So then finally we want to integrate it, build an automation and operate on top of it, right? So then comes a feedback loop that we have in our pipelines. We call it as an automated quality gate. What is this automated quality gate? You can have an automated quality gate in your deployment side. You can also have an automated quality gates on your data pre-processing steps also. What is this quality gate? Automated quality gates are used in order to decide whether this is the best model to be deployed to your deployment environment or not. Consider that, let's say I have trained my ML model on a logistic regression. Let's say I'm trying to use my metrics. For example, let's say I'm going to use MSE score. Let's say mean square error. Let's say I'm going to write a condition on my automated quality gates in order to check, in case if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, then only I want my model to be registered in my model registry. Otherwise, I don't want my model to be registered under a model registry at all. So this is how you can able to use an automated quality gates in order to register your ML models by comparing with your metrics. You can also use your automated quality gates on your data pre-processing step. You can have a data checkpoints in order to check whether your data is clean, it's completely out of outliers, or maybe missing values or something like that. And again, having an end-to-end traceability in each and every step here. So here we are not just talking about model building, training, and deployment and monitoring. It's about everything, right? So we need to monitor continuously what's happening in your data pre-processing step, what's happening in your data data version control tools, what's happening in your code repositories, feature stores. We need to monitor the metrics, the logs on each and every platform, continuously monitoring your ML models, which is serving your customers in production too, right? So this is what a level 4 architecture of MLOps pipelines looks like. Okay, so now we understand this, isn't it? Okay, so now you might ask a question, Sharad, I'm a data engineer, I'm a data scientist, I'm a DevOps engineer. So where I will be fitted here, what I would be doing here specifically, right? So let's get started. So now let's try to understand the different roles involved in MLOps right now. So definitely we understand that. So developing a successful machine learning model actually involves varieties of experiences, and it requires extreme collaboration among a team, definitely, because that's all about MLOps. It's all about collaboration and communication between a team, right? So any organizations, if they are getting started with building an ML model in a first hand, they have to answer a couple of questions. First of all, they have to think, is this a problem that they could able to solve with machine learning, right? And machine learning is all about, okay, teaching a data where your machine understands a pattern from it, right? So, but most of the problems you could able to solve it through writing a simple logics, right? The first thing, the most important thing, they have to ensure they have enough data to get started. So then comes, do they have enough resources? Do they have enough employees, right? So not every organizations, they will be having all the kind of roles that we're going to talk about right now, right? So for example, let's consider in the perspective of an MNCs, they might have a different teams to do different things. They might be having a team of data analysts, they might be having a team of data engineers, a team of data scientists, research or applied scientists, ML engineers, DevOps teams, or developers, for example, right? Who might be responsible for various different things as part of building ML models. So let's try to dive deep into this. So what do our data analysts does? So obviously they work closely with a product manager and a business team. So the ultimate duty for them is to drive insights from your client's data. They use various different tools like SQL, Excel sheets, range of data visualization tools like Tableau or Power BI, right? So then comes our dear data engineers. So data engineers, basically they will be ensuring that they will build an infrastructure to collect, transform, pre-process your data. They use tools like Spark, Hadoop, ETL tools, and along with that they use tools like data version control tools. They work with feature stores, for example, what we are talking about. And then comes definitely our data scientist, who will be building an ML model which is going to be part of a final end product. Yes, so our data scientists will be working with data, version control tools, with feature stores, model monitoring tools, and such other kind of tools, model registries, for example. So then comes research or applied scientist, right? What is this research or maybe applied scientist? So usually you don't see this kind of a roles in all the organizations, but companies who are working with, let's say a cutting edge technologies, they will be often having this kind of a roles. Maybe we can think about like a Google, Microsoft, Amazon kind of an organizations. So ultimately they will be working with let's say building a new algorithm to solve specific problems. So then comes ML engineers are DevOps team, right? So when it comes to machine learning, we don't call them as DevOps team, we call them as ML engineers or ML team, basically. So the ultimate duty for our machine learning engineers, so their work usually overlaps with our data engineers, but they focus largely on, let's say taking an ML model that is actually developed by our data scientist and deploying it to a deployment environment. For example, they want to deploy it on a Docker services, Kubernetes, or something on cloud, right? Something like that. That's good. So this is the different kind of roles which is part of MLOps. And again, let's say not every organizations will have a dedicated roles like this, but in few organizations, they might be having a requirement, something like you will be part of both data science workloads and you will be also part of machine learning engineering workloads. I mean, you'll be responsible for both building an ML model and again taking that ML model and deploying it. In few organizations, you'll be also responsible for data engineering and data science also, right? That's a reality. That's how it works. Not every organization will be having a dedicated role, right? Saying that, now we understand what is MLOps in some level. So now let's try to compare MLOps with DevOps and let's try to get some insights out of it. So we definitely understand DevOps is all about software development lifecycle. It's something where you build a software and test it and deliver it, right? It can be your Android web application, something like that. So when it comes to MLOps, it's all about delivering your ML models, right? So DevOps, it's all about building a generic applications, as I mentioned, right? So here we will be using standard set of libraries, right? Definitely. And here version control involves tracking changes on your code or maybe on artifacts, right? Changes on your code or maybe the artifacts that you have produced, the application, right? So your artifacts can be your executable jar files at the end of the day. And how do you validate your application? We do conduct various different testings, but here I mentioned unit testing, but we do a lot of different things. So what are the different kind of roles involved in DevOps? We can say software engineers and DevOps engineers, basically. So when it comes to MLOps, here we will be building an ML model to feed inferences or to generate predictions out of it. Definitely, when it comes to building an ML model, we use broad scope of tools, languages, and libraries. Just imagine the amount of libraries that we use. sklearn, something related to the cloud platform, right? Something pandas, it may be NumPy, you just name it, right? And let's say data versioning tools that we're going to use, model artifacts for versioning, model registry, source code versioning tools, and more. So here our artifacts can be serialized files, for example, and how do we evaluate our ML model? Definitely through metrics. It can be model performance, right? And there are different roles who are involved in process of building ML model, but here I just mentioned data science or ML engineers, but you name it, all these peoples, right? Saying this, it's finally time to get some insights about different tools for MLOps. Okay, now here we go. Here you might be a data scientist coming from various different experience. You might be a 2 years of experience guy, 15 years of experience guy. Same thing applies for DevOps team or maybe a data engineering team that you guys have. So how do you pick a tool for your organization, right? So what are the things that you need to consider when you're picking up a tool? Let's try to understand that. Key features of MLOps tools. What are the things that you need to consider? The first thing is open source or a closed source tools. As we discussed already, so not every organization will be running their workloads only on a cloud. They will be also using open source tools. You can ask question why. See, even though their organizations using tools like, clouds like AWS or Azure or GCP, they want to also use open source tools. They don't want to burn a lot of money on clouds. They want to also cut down their operational cost. They also look for open source tools like Docker, Kubernetes, MLflow, Metaflow, ZenML, right? A lot of tools that I can mention. So definitely we understand that open source tools are often, they are free and it can be easily integrated with your MLOps tool. But only difficulties that you might face when you have very few developers who can work with open source tools, and if you don't have let's say enough documentation to be supported to get started with that open source tools. Then comes platform versus specific tool, right? Let's say if you don't consider going with cloud platforms or open source tools, let's say you want to go for a subscription kind of a tool, let's say subscription based tools. Let's say you pay a monthly subscription for some kind of a tools, and let's say you get started. I'm talking about commercial tools, right? Then comes model and production environment monitoring. Let's say the tool that you're going to design and a tool that you're going to pick, does that particular tool offers you production monitoring or maybe model monitoring that is deployed to production? So that's really important in order to ensure that your models and environments are monitored and your bugs are documented and addressed in a time. And MLOps team to catch up any security and compliance concerns in a time, right? So then comes model templating and cataloging, the very important aspect that you need to consider. What do you mean by that? Model templating and cataloging. So let's consider that your team putting an effort and building an end-to-end MLOps pipeline. Let's consider that a level 4 architecture of an MLOps, right? And let's say they are solving a problem to any specific client, right? So is this the only project that you're going to build in your organization? Are you not going to build any other projects for any different client, for your any other client? Definitely yes, right? But is that the question is, are you going to reinvent your wheel again and again? Not definitely. So this is where model templating and cataloging, or that the complete MLOps pipeline cataloging comes into the picture. So you need to ensure that the tool that you're going to pick, does it offer templating and cataloging? So where you can able to create a templates and catalog it, and where you can able to reuse that template again and again. So where you can able to replicate that particular pipelines with minimal changes for n number of clients that you're going to work tomorrow. So then comes model training, tuning, and drift management. Very important. So here we are talking about an automation that you can build on top of it. We don't want our data engineers or maybe data scientists right now again and again going and running a code manually and producing a new ML model. So where we want a pipelines and automated pipelines in a such a way where automated data preparation, model training, and model tuning can comes in picture. So every time a pipeline can automatically run, it can automatically produce a new ML model, and this new ML model can be deployed to production. Then comes pipeline management. So pipeline management is really important because here we don't have one stakeholder. We have a data engineers, data scientists, ML engineers, developers, everyone. We need to have a pipeline to send some automated triggers whenever we have our data preparation steps are completed. We need to just say that to our data engineering team, saying that our data preparation step is completed, there is no issues. And in case if there are issues, we need to just notify if that particular step has failed. Similar things applies for model training and model deployment, again model monitoring. Then comes collaboration and communication capability in a tool that you're going to pick. So does a tool that you're going to pick, does it offers you embed communication tools, offers a way to document your commands and questions and such other things? Consider that, does the MLOps tool that you have used, does it offers integration with Slack? For example, messaging services like Slack. Or does it offers you integration with project management tools like Jira, right? That's it, right? So now let's get started. Let's have a discussion on MLOps tools on top of cloud platforms. Okay, so here we're going to talk about 3 cloud platforms: AWS, Azure, GCP. First of all, why cloud platform? You might ask a question, Sharath, why first of all we need to learn cloud? Are MLOps tools on cloud? This is why. So we need to understand that there are various different cloud platforms out there, right? But we don't want to talk about all those stuff. We're going to talk about the top 3 players in the world. AWS comes first, Azure comes next, and GCP comes third. So that means these are the 3 major cloud platforms where maximum amount of the workloads, when it comes to machine learning workloads, happens on top of this cloud platform. Having a skill on top of this cloud platform, it opens a 360-degree view of MLOps for you. I mean, in our MLOps specialization program, in our MLOps specialization course, we're going to cover not just one cloud platform. We're going to cover AWS, MLOps and tools on AWS, Azure, and even GCP. Not just that, as we discussed, just having a cloud knowledge on a cloud platform, definitely it's not going to help you. We do also cover open source tools. As I mentioned, it can be Docker, it can be Kubernetes, it can be MLflow, Metaflow, ZenML, and a lot of other tools. So now let's get started. Let's try to understand the various different tools that are part of our program. So Git-based tools. So definitely we understand the importance of versioning your code. What are the different tools that we're going to talk about? What are the different tools that we need to know? So for example, a Git is the only tool that you need to understand in order to use any Git-based tools. For example, it can be GitHub. It can be, if you want to, in your organizations, they want to use AWS code commit, or maybe in your organizations, they want to use Azure repos, or maybe they want to use GCP repos, or they want to use Bitbucket, right? So then comes CI/CD tools, definitely, a continuous integration and continuous deployment tools. So definitely, before we understanding CI/CD, we need to understand CI/CD for DevOps, right? So we use CI/CD in order to deliver a new software again and again to production. That's how it works in DevOps. So it's all about maintaining software development lifecycle. How it works, a very simple understanding. Let's consider that we have a software engineer who want to release a new feature on the software. What he does, he goes and makes changes in his code and he commits those changes to his repository. For example, let's say our software engineer makes some changes to a code, and then what happens? A trigger automatically starts. The trigger will be statically triggering in order to start building. What do you mean by building? What we do? Let's say there is a software, we need to build it. Let's say we want to convert that software into jar files. Let's say we want to convert that software into zip file where I can take that artifact and goes and deploy it on a web server, right? So let's say once your build process is done, we notify to our software engineer or maybe to our DevOps engineer saying that your build process is completed, there is no issues. Then comes running a test. So definitely it is not going to help you if you don't run any test. Similarly, we run a lot of testings on our MLOps model, on top of MLOps for testing your ML models. So here again, if your test has been cleared, there's no issues, we also notify the testing is clear. Finally, we take a next further steps in order to deploy your ML model to production, where finally your customers can able to use it. So a very simple understanding. Let's consider that there is an e-commerce website where every day you go and buy a product. So where there is a green color button, which definitely you don't like. Let's say whenever you want to buy something from that particular website, you need to hit on a green color, which is fine, which is currently serving a production. Let's say you're giving a feedback to that organization. We don't like a green color button. Can you change it to a red color button? Just consider this story. And taking that into a picture, let's say a developer who is working in that organization, they decide finally to release a new feature. I mean, converting their green color button to red color button. So this is how their system is. So here they have a code pipelines. Let's consider something on AWS. They use GitHub where they have versioned their code. They have two different branches, one for development, one for production, as we discussed. Let's say initially our developer commits a code, and once our code pipelines could automatically recognizes that our developer has made changes. There is no manual execution here. So once a code has been arrived, this is where we start building that particular software. And let's say then we will be having an artifact after building that software. Let's say we have a zip file, let's say we have a jar file. And finally, we take that jar artifact and finally we deploy it on a web server. So here, when we're deploying it on a web server, we have two different environments. As I mentioned, we have a dev environment and production environment. Initially, we're going to deploy our application on a dev environment, and again, our developers or maybe DevOps team comes and checks it whether the button has been changed from green to red. So now, if it is turned from green to red, and you test it, you check whether it is clicking, it is working perfectly fine or not. Okay. In the next step, you're going to release the same exact feature to production also. So now my production button also changed to red, right? So this is a pretty much simple example how your CI/CD works automatically. So now if we try to understand how our MLOps pipeline works in the same exact way. Similarly, let's say here we have our data engineers or maybe data scientists. They make some changes to their code on top of their laptop. Let's say they write a code, they might make some changes to their code on their laptop, right? Let's say this is where our data engineers or maybe data scientists make some changes to the code. They push the code to a code repository. And once the code has been pushed to a code repository, the MLOps pipeline that you have built could automatically able to recognize that there are some changes in your code. It automatically started doing feature engineering. There is no data engineers or data scientists manually manually running a code on Jupyter Notebook, but everything happens automated way here. So here a feature engineering happens. So once a feature engineering is done, a next step, a model training step comes into the picture. So this is where we produce our ML models, and this ML model will be further evaluated in a model evaluation step. And in case if you're really satisfied with this ML model, and now we do use our condition step, otherwise a quality gate, automated quality gate that I'm talking about. So this is where we use automated quality gate in order to check, for example, in case if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, then I register my ML model to model registry. Otherwise, if it is greater than 7, I don't want to register my model to model registry. Let's consider that I have a best versions of my ML model sitting in my model registry. What is next? So this is where we use our build tools. Let's consider that you have a pickle file. Let's say you have an ML model as a pickle file. Let's say now you want to build a Docker image. Let's say now I build a Docker image and now I want to deploy my Docker image onto a deployment platform. So this is where I host my ML model. Similar to DevOps, again, I have two different environments. Initially, I deploy my ML model on a dev environment. And here, our data engineers and data scientists, who are the team who is responsible, they comes and checks your ML model. They check if it is working as you expected, as per your KPIs. And if you are satisfied, then again, you'll be releasing the same ML model to production where your customers can finally utilize a service from you. Saying that, what are the different kind of CI/CD tools that you could able to use that is outside in the market? If you're looking for something on AWS, you could able to use AWS code pipelines integrated with code commit, code build, or maybe code deploy. Looking for something on GCP, we could able to use cloud build or cloud repositories, or maybe artifact registries, or cloud run, or maybe cloud deploy. And looking for something on Azure, we can able to use Azure pipelines, Azure repos, Azure artifacts, or maybe Azure boards with Azure test plans. Are looking for open source tools for deploying your ML models, maybe we could able to use Dockers that we're going to cover, Kubernetes that we're going to cover from scratch. Or like, let's say we're looking forward to deploy your ML models on a cloud-based Kubernetes servers. Yes, something on Amazon Elastic Kubernetes servers, or something on Azure Kubernetes servers. Yes. Are looking for a model management tools and open source model management tools, MLflow. We'll be covering MLflow end to end. So how do we deploy ML flow stack? How do we build, train, and deploy your ML models through ML flow stack? Again, talking about tools like DVC, which stands for data version control tools, in order to version your data, which is very famously used tool in many different organizations. Alternative to DVC, you can also use Git based tool, otherwise we call it as Git large files, in order to version your data. Then comes feature stores, right? A schema repository for your features. So you can able to use tools on top of AWS, for example, Amazon SageMaker feature store. And maybe if you're looking for a feature store on top of Vertex AI, are looking for feature stores on Databricks, are looking forward to use very famous open source feature stores like Feast, are like looking for a commercial platforms like HubSpot or TechTalk to use your own feature store. I'm talking about cloud ML services, where we can able to build end-to-end level 4 MLOps architecture using Amazon SageMaker Studio to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline with hands-on project, Vertex AI in order to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline with hands-on project, Azure Machine Learning Studio in order to build a level 4 architecture for MLOps pipelines. And again, not interested to deploy or maybe run your pipelines on cloud, looking forward for running your pipelines on open source tool. Here we're going to talk about Kubeflow, which is a very famous open source tool which runs on top of, let's say, Kubernetes clusters to build an open source MLOps pipelines. Then comes model monitoring tools, the post-deployment challenges. The actual challenge starts after you're deploying your ML model. So we're going to talk about the various different SDKs being offered by AWS or Azure or GCP in order to monitor ML models. Otherwise, using open source tools like Evidently AI in order to monitor your ML models. Otherwise, talking about automated ML tools, otherwise auto ML tools like Azure Azure. These tools are commercial platforms where you pay a subscription and they give you a system for you to build end-to-end pipelines on their environment. So it can be tools like Domino Data Labs, Olahai, Weights and Biases, Neptune.ai, or maybe H2O.ai. So then comes a post-deployment challenges. The post-deployment challenges, software engineering related, or maybe post-deployment challenges, ML engineering related. I mean, the post-deployment challenges, if you're trying to deploy your ML models on edge devices, like your mobile phones, maybe IoT devices or something like that. Saying this is what MLOps is, and this is what it takes in order to become a specialist in MLOps. So in order to gain more insight about it, what if you are getting started with a live demo? Okay, here we go. From this point, please don't leave this meeting so you can able to get started. You can able to enjoy the live demo that I built on top of AWS, and you can also download the free ebooks only if you stay till end of this particular session, and you can learn and know more about our MLOps specialization program. Okay, let's get started with a live demo that I've arranged on AWS. Here we go. Here's the console. Let's get started. So probably you should able to see the screen that I'm sharing. This is my SageMaker Studio. Here we go. Here I have a MLOps pipeline that I built for model training, building, training, and deployment. The project name is called MLOps July Path. Okay, so if I go inside that particular project, this is my root directory of my project. So this is my pipeline. Let's get started. So here you can able to see that we have a couple of tabs like repositories, pipelines, experiments, model groups, endpoints, and settings. What is this repositories, right? Just consider the architecture that we have discussed, right? So this is the repositories that is being used by our data engineers. It can be your data scientist, someone who's going to make some changes to the code, and someone who's going to publish or commit those changes to the repository. So the repositories that you're seeing on my screen, you can able to see there are two repositories, one for model building, another one for model deployment. I have separate repository for model building, another separate repository for model deployment. So this is where I might have all the script sitting where our data engineers and maybe data scientists will be making changes. And if I go to pipelines, this is where I have my pipeline execution part. So as of right now, I have a pipeline called MLOps July part. If I go inside that particular pipeline, you can see that I have a notification which says the status which says succeeded. So this is where you can see my pipelines executing. As of right now, you can see that I have only one execution. You can ask a question. What happens? I have 3 to 4 executions here. That means you have your pipeline has been executed 3 to 4 times, that means you're going to have a 3 to 4 ML models. That's how it works. So as of right now, I have my pipeline executed 2 hours ago, which is only one execution. That means I'm going to have only one ML model. So let's get inside this particular pipeline, and here we go. So this is the pipeline. We call it as a graph, which helps you understand how my pipeline works. Here you can see that this is the pipeline where you can able to see different blocks. But before we talking about these blocks, let's try to understand what is the problem that I'm trying to solve here. So this particular use case that I'm trying to solve, I'm trying to create an ML model in order to predict an age of an abalone. So I'm trying to predict an age of an abalone. So what is this abalone? You can Google it later. An abalone is kind of a seafood. Okay, it's a sea snake. It's an edible seafood. So basically here, in order to figure out an age of an abalone, it's a tedious process. So they use microscope in order to, it takes a couple of hours in order to predict an age of an abalone. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to utilize a data. I'm going to teach that data to a machine where I'm building an end-to-end MLOps pipeline in order to predict an age of an abalone. Let's try to understand in pretty much more detail what's happening in each and every step. The first step in our pipeline, we call it as process abalone data. If I click that process abalone data, towards right side, you should be able to see what's happening in my input side, what's happening in my output side, what are the logs. The logs actually represents the end-to-end traceability and the informations. See, as part of an input, what do you think, what kind of an input that you're going to have a pre-processing step? Usually I'm going to input my data, right? And then I want to eventually convert that data into training, validation, and testing data set, right? So I need to have some kind of a machine. Here I'm going to use a machine called ml.m5.xlarge. That's a kind of a CPU based machine in order to pre-process my data. Finally, we'll go to my output side. As part of a data preparation step, I'm simply converting my data into training data set, validation data set, and testing data set. And I'm storing this data set as a CSV files into my S3 bucket. If you wonder what is S3 bucket, S3 is a kind of a storage platform where we keep all the data. So here I have my training, testing, and validation data stored in my S3 bucket. So in the next step, once my data is available, then I will go to training step. So training my abalone model. So this is where I will again use ml.m5.xlarge, and again I say that where is my data is coming from. Obviously my data is coming from S3 bucket. So then I started training my ML model. At end of my ML model, all I'm going to have ML model that has been produced by my SageMaker Studio. Here, when it comes to Amazon SageMaker produce ML model as model.tar.gz file. That's a tar file where you have your ML model. And here you have metrics, a few metrics that we've been generated during your training and validation. I mean, the metrics of RMSE score, that is root mean square error value on training and root mean square value on validation, which is 1.57 and 2.23. So this is my training step. So once my training module is done, it will produce an ML model. So in order to evaluate our ML model, we'll be going to evaluate abalone model step. So this is where we'll be evaluating our ML model and generating metrics out of it. So this is where I calculate a metrics like standard deviation. This is where I calculate a metrics like MSE score. Okay, and I convert that into JSON files, and I'm going to export that JSON file into S3 bucket. So I can able to use this evaluation metrics further in my pipeline to refer. So once my model is evaluated, then finally we'll be going to my automated quality gate that we discussed in our previous step. So this is called, here I call it as check MSE abalone evaluation. So this is my automated quality gate, which actually checks in case if my ML model, let's say in case if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, it registers my model to model registry, otherwise it won't. So this condition being evaluated in this check MSE abalone evaluation. In case if it is less than or equal to 7, it's going to say true, otherwise it's going to say false. Yes, my condition has been passed, my MSE score is less than or equal to 7. In that particular scenario it is true. Now finally we are going to registering our ML model to model registry, where we call it as register abalone model -register model. And here you can able to check my actual MSE score. My actual MSE score is 5.16, which is definitely less than or equal to 7. So and a couple of details. So saying that you can also check the complete logs. If I go to my logs platform, Here it uses AWS CloudWatch in order to get the complete logs where you can able to have an end-to-end traceability, what's happening in your data pre-processing step, what's happening in your training step. You can able to monitor that in detail. Saying this is my pipeline, this is how my pipeline executes. And now let's go to my root directory of my project. Let's go to the next module, that is experiments. So what is this experiments? As we are discussing, experiment can be anything that you do with your data. For example, it can be data pre-processing experiment, it can be model evaluation experiment, it can be your model training experiment. Okay, saying that, so here you can able to see that we have three experiments as I mentioned, one for data pre-processing, one for model evaluation, one for model training. So now let's go to model group. This is what we call it as model registry actually. So what is this model registry anyway? So we already discussed a model registry is something, a tool that we used in order to version our ML model. It can be SageMaker Studio here, it can be MLflow open source tools, it can be something on Vertex AI, it can be something on Azure. So here in SageMaker Studio, we call it as model group. So here I have a model group called MLOps July part. If I go inside that model group, here you can see that I have my first version of my ML model with version ID as 1 because I have only one. Then you can see I have my stage as none, my status is pending. That means I have my ML model, but it is not yet deployed to my production or to my dev environment. So how do I deploy? So now, how do I deploy my ML model to production, right? How do I do that? So now in order to deploy your ML model to dev or maybe production, let's go get inside that particular model. If I double click it, I'll be redirected to a screen which will look like this. So now you can see that event type is approval and my event is status update to pending manual approval. This is what I'm talking about. Let's say if you have trained your ML, let's say you have produced your new ML model, we don't want to just go and automatically deploy to a dev or maybe to your staging. Instead, someone in your team who has a hierarchy, who has a permissions, we want them to manually go and approve that ML model to be deployed to a dev or maybe production environment. So now let me show you how am I going to approve this ML model to be deployed to a dev or maybe to production. So here you can able to see that I have update status button. I'm just going to simply click that. In this particular model, I can change the status of this ML model from pending to approved. And if I want, I can just type some commands. I will simply say update status. Pretty much that's it. So this is how we do approve our ML model to be deployed to dev environment. So in order to approve your ML model to production environment, there is a different step. Okay, so we're going to check out that in few minutes. So now let's try to observe what's happening in the deployment process of your ML model. It's when it is deploying to a dev environment. So now if I come to a root directory, you can see something called endpoints. So this is where you can able to see that your deployment process begins in order to deploy your ML model to dev environment. It's going to take a couple of minutes in order to deploy your ML model to dev environment. In the meantime, let's get back to the slide. Let's see what else that we have to learn. Okay, let's give it a few minutes. And now let's jump into the next topic that we have to learn or understand, the MLOps job industry. Right? So definitely now let's have a good insight about, there are data engineers here, there are data scientists, DevOps team, there are ML engineers, there are data analysts, a lot of different peoples. Why do you think you really need to learn MLOps? What happens or what you might go to lose if you don't learn MLOps? Pretty much simple. Considering the current state of machine learning, what's happening today, right? Consider that last 10 years, every organizations at that particular point, they started working with ML models. They started working with the data. So they started hired a lot of data engineers and data scientists. Today, every data engineers and every data scientist, they have a pretty much good knowledge in building data pipelines, algorithms, hyperparameter tuning ML models, and producing the best quality ML model, right? So today, every data scientist and data engineers can do, right? So do you think still an organization for next 10 years, they will be simply building an ML model? Do you think they won't be going for production? That's never going to happen. That's where we talked about the current state of machine learning, what's going to happen in 2023 and 2024, right? So this is why MLOps is a must-have skills for the peoples and maybe some of the stakeholders who are part of building ML models. Who should be part of MLOps? Who should learn MLOps? Are you a data scientist? Are you a data engineer? Are you a data analyst? Are you a research or maybe applied scientist, someone who is working in ML industry? Are you a ML engineer? Are you a DevOps engineer, someone who is migrating to ML or maybe ML engineering field? Are you an aspiring MLOps professional or enthusiast? Are you a machine learning professional looking for deploying your ML models into production? Looking for someone who want to learn how to build an automation? Are you someone who want to learn Docker, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, DVC, Feast, MLflow, Metaflow, ZenML, something like that, right? It's like a music, isn't it? Yes, there are a lot of tools that we're going to learn. Our individual persons who have an interest in data or AI industry is someone who have to really get started and learn MLOps, right? So industries today, they are looking forward to get into production, right? If you still believe, if you have a skills to build an ML model, that definitely that's definitely going to shape your career for next 10 years, definitely not. Because what really powers AI today, it's an automation that's around it, right? So you might ask a question. So today, if you open Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, blah, 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 any social media, we definitely talk about AI tools today, right? So chat GPT, it may be DALI 3, or maybe something Meta released last 4 weeks ago. Or last 4 weeks ago, Google I/O released a lot of AI updates into their cloud, into Gmail. You might have observed this. My question is pretty much simple. AI is final end product, which is customer facing, right? That's what we call it as an AI. So generative AI, as someone is mentioning in the chat window. So when you call AI, AI is something finally customer facing. So what's happening behind ChatGPT? What's happening behind all the AI tools? It's an automation, what they have been built. There's an MLOps pipelines which has been built, which is monitoring your ML models, which is monitoring your infrastructure, right? Where they have a data versioning tools. We have a CI/CD pipelines, which is actually powering your ML models actually, right? So that's why you need MLOps, which definitely brings a success for your organizations, right? Saying that, if you are trying to understand as let's say the MLOps salary, right? So how does your future looks like? How does your lives looks like once you have an MLOps skills on your resume? So let's talk about what is an average salary for MLOps for someone who has an MLOps skills on their resume, right? So in India, according to sixfigure.com, you can just go and you can able to cross verify by yourself. According to 6figr.com, an average salary does mean someone has at least 2 to 3 years of experience. In India, it starts from 23.1 lakhs after verifying 12 profiles from sixfigure.com. So how does it look like? Let's say if you are somewhere beyond 3 years of experience, let's say at 33% of people's lie between 10 to 20 lakhs, 42% of people's lie between 20 to 30 lakhs, and 25% of people's lies between 30 to 40 lakhs, right? Depends. Okay, you might have 15 years of experience, more than that, right? And let's say what does a salary range looks like in case if you're from US or maybe global standard, it's $94.5K. That's really huge number. And definitely there is no doubt about the MLOps job vacancy trend today till in 2023 is skyrocketing, right? So actually the trend started picking up from 2009, the trend's still picking up today. So a lot of people, when I display this particular slide, they ask a question. Sharad, there's a lot of recession is happening outside. So, but this, what about this data that you're saying? Pretty much simple. Let's again talk about this AI tools. So people talk about recession in US, in India, maybe in UK, right? People talk about people's losing a job. Okay, in another side, we talk about AI. Every week there is a new AI tool that's coming outside the market. Who is actually building all these AI tools? Why AI is in hype today, right? So there's no relations, right? So obviously the AI industry is still booming. There is a lot of gap, especially for the people who don't have MLOps skills actually, right? So that's the real beauty. So this trend keeps on picking up. So a good understanding always that I would like to mention in all of my sessions actually. So just try to understand the amount of the transformation that's happening, the speed of transformation that's happening in every industry. Just consider that what happened between 2009 and 2019, right? Just imagine the world without drones, right? At that particular time, we should be able to see the choppers flying in all the cities with the news reporters trying to shot a movie, shot a news or something like that, right? So this particular industry completely been replaced in just 10 years with this drones, right? So that's a level of transformation that's happening today in the world. The future is AI. There's no doubt about it, right? So if you ask, how long this is going to last, right? So my question would be this, my funny answer would be this: until the Terminators comes to the world, take over the complete world, there is a job for AI people, the job for data engineers, there's a job for data engineers. Okay, I'm just kidding, but that's where we are actually traveling, right? Okay, saying this, it's time to start having a discussion about our MLOps specialization course. When are we going to get started, right? So we'll be getting started with our end-to-end MLOps specialization course. This is a course, we call it as, it's a program where you can become a specialist, a program which can able to become a specialist. Otherwise, it provides a 360-degree view of MLOps. What do you mean by that, right? What do you mean by 360-degree view? Because we do cover 3 major cloud platforms here. I mean, MLOps and tools on Azure, can be GCP, it can be AWS, are not just that, including open source tools, right? Which provides a 360-degree view of MLOps. What do you mean by that? So today you might be working in an organization where you might be using AWS. Tomorrow, what if you're getting a better opportunity where they're looking for an Azure cloud platform, or someone is looking for GCP, or someone is looking for both AWS and open source tools, both Azure and AWS tools, right? Open source tools. Definitely, this is the program where we can able to bring you a 360-degree view of MLOps with hands-on knowledge. Otherwise, we call it as a 4 pillars, that is AWS, Azure, GCP, and open source tools. So we'll be getting started with our complete live hands-on instructor lead class starting from 1st of July. So this program is going to be a 60 hours program. Otherwise, it's going to be a 7 weekends program. Every Saturday, Sunday, we're going to have a live sessions. So the entire structure of a program works something like this. It's a every weekend program. So every Saturday, Sunday, starting from 1st of July, we're going to have a live sessions starting from 7 p.m. IST to 11 p.m. IST in case from India. In case you are from EST's time zone, it's going to be starting from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. In case you are from CET time zone, from UK or some other European countries, it's going to be from 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So every weekend we're going to have a live sessions, and every Monday you're going to receive an access to the recordings of those live sessions. And again, the more unique about our program can be also called as debugging sessions. So it's not just a live sessions, it's also something called optional debugging sessions you can also attend either on Tuesday and Wednesday. So what is this? 85% of a curriculum that we have. Okay, we're definitely going to talk about a curriculum. Please don't leave the meeting. So because still the demo isn't pending, still I need to share free ebooks and free discounts that you can able to also obtain from this program if you stay till the end of this particular program. So 85% of a curriculum that we have in our program, it's live hands-on. What do you mean by that? So majority amount of a time in this program we'll be spending building live hands-on projects. That means, so people who might be joining a live sessions, in case if you have any questions or bugs, or maybe if you want to discuss something else in your career. So let's say you can join our debugging sessions on every Tuesday and Wednesday, where it's a one-on-one debugging sessions where we help you fix your problem, talking something about your job, or let's say as part of our plan. So we also help our peoples to provide a roadmap, and in order to provide a roadmap for applying in interviews, optimizing your resumes and other such stuff. Okay, before we're talking about more about our program, let's check it out what's happening in your model deployment stuff. Okay, let's go back to your AWS, let's try to enjoy our live demo, and let's come back to our actual program. Let's discuss more about our program. So now you can see my SageMaker Studio screen, and you can see my ML model has been deployed successfully. So this is my ML, name of my ML model, which says MLOps July part staging. I mean, this is my dev environment. So now you can see the status of my ML model is in service. That means my ML model has been successfully deployed to dev. Let me just go inside on that particular ML model, and let's say I will go to AWS settings, and here you should be able to see the REST API, which has been, I mean, it's deployed to an endpoint on top of AWS. You can see this is a REST API that your developers could able to use in order to build a front-end application, Android, or maybe web application, where your customers can finally come and interact. So now quickly I'm going to show you how can I generate an inferences, a predictions from it. Okay, so I'm going to copy this name, I mean endpoint name. I'm going to open a Jupyter notebooks, right? So here is my Jupyter notebook, and here I have a simple script that I've written in order to generate a predictions out of a model that I've been deployed. So here I'm going to use this script in order to invoke my ML model. And here is my test data set that I'm going to use in order to feed a test data set in order to generate inferences. So now I am going to save it. I'm going to run my ML. I'm going to run this particular script in order to generate inferences. You can see that as part of a result, it says the age of an abalone is 8.42, right? So what I'm trying to do, I have deployed my ML model on a dev environment. I'm using a different machine altogether in order to make inferences, in order to make predictions. Okay, so this is how you can able to interact with your ML model that is deployed to dev. But still, I haven't showed you how to deploy your ML model to production. Now let me show you how to deploy my ML model to production. So in order to deploy your ML model to production, we cannot do it on SageMaker Studio as part of an architecture. It uses a code pipelines, which is a CI/CD pipelines on top of AWS. So we need to go to code pipelines on top of AWS in order to deploy our ML models to production. So now let me just go to a code pipelines console. So where I can use a service over there that I created, a pipeline that I created over there in order to deploy my ML model to production actually. So now I'm on a code pipelines console. So now you should be able to see that I have a pipeline that is in progress. Okay. So you should be able to see that I have a couple of pipelines, but you can see there's a one pipeline which says in progress, right? Which is actually SageMaker MLOps July. That's my pipeline. I'm also going to open my session for Q&A, so you can able to ask a lot of questions. Please don't leave the meeting. Okay. So here you can see that this is my pipeline. Okay, so here you can see that I have my source. This is where my code is coming from, and here is my build step where actually I'm using AWS code build to build, and here is my deployment step where I'm trying to deploy my ML model to staging to production. Similar to what I have showed you in a SageMaker Studio, it is actually waiting for my approval. So where it is actually waiting for a manual approval from some of our stakeholders in your team in order to manually approve your ML model to deploy. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to hit this review button, and I'm going to say, if I want to mention some commands, I can mention some commands, and I'm going to simply hit approve button in order to deploy my ML model to production environment. Now I have approved my ML model to be deployed to a production environment. So now it is getting deployed to a new machine altogether. So now let me just go back to my endpoint. And in a few minutes, you should be able to see that, yeah, you can see that my ML model, the production ML model, which says MLOps July prod, which says production, which is actually being created. Again, it's going to take a few more minutes in order to deploy my ML model. Okay, let's come back again. Now we will go back to our actual program. Let's discuss about our program. Okay, let's get started. So MLOps specialization course, what are the key features of it? It's a 60 hours program, as I mentioned. Otherwise, a 7 weekends program altogether. So more than 50 plus hands-on labs, more than 5 plus real-time projects. What do you mean by that? Just consider that at least one project will be built on every cloud platform. End-to-end MLOps level 4 architecture on AWS, Azure, GCP. And again, we do also teach you DevOps here, because without understanding DevOps, it doesn't make sense in order to understand MLOps. At least one DevOps project will be built on every cloud platform. At least one project will be built on all the open source tools that we're talking about. It may be MLflow, Kubeflow, right? It can be Kubernetes, Dockers, such kind of a tools. Okay. Saying that, and again, one-on-one debugging sessions, a dedicated one-on-one debugging sessions on a debugging sessions day on either on Tuesday and Wednesday. Saying that, now, can you just provide me some pricing information, the most awaited time? It's over here. Finally, what is the pricing for this particular program? Okay, so here we do have 3 different pricing structures, not one pricing structures. So we made this pretty much easy for our participants to get what exactly you need from this particular program. Okay, we have 3 different plans. We call it as basic, advanced, or maybe advanced plus. So the actual price for our advanced plan starts from 39,999. So this is our advanced plus plan, and then we have our advanced plan where it starts from 34,999. Then we have our basic plan which just starts from 32,999. What is this? Okay, we understand it. So what is this basic or maybe advanced or maybe advanced plus? Okay, let me just provide you clarity. So irrespective of what are the plan that you're going to purchase, it may be you go for basic plan or you go for advanced plan or maybe advanced plus, doesn't matter. As part of learning, right? So there will be an equal opportunity would be given for all the participants in attending live sessions, access to recordings, access to debugging sessions is common for all the price plans here. Then what is difference? What is advanced or maybe advanced plus? So people who are registering for advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, they get some premium features, a premium support from us. What do you mean by that? The first thing we could able to say, bonus reattendance opportunity. So what is this bonus reattendance opportunity? A very benefited feature for working professionals. So usually working professionals, they take either advanced or maybe advanced plus actually. So what happens, let's say working professionals, I mean, we are really busy working, right? Again, we make a time to attend our live sessions. Usually we have noticed a few people's after, I mean, so they miss at least 15 to 20% of our live sessions, okay? And they ask, okay, Sharath, I have missed 15 to 20% of live sessions, which is really important. Can you just give me another opportunity in the next batch so I can retake that particular things that I missed? For that reason, we have introduced bonus reattendance opportunity. That means, let's say with one sign up, you can take this program twice. I mean, even after completing our lives, I mean, even after completing our July batch, you can retake this program once again, completely free in the next batch, which might happen in September. That's bonus reattendance opportunity. So then you get 6 months of technical job support completely for free. What is this 6 months of technical job support? Consider that after completing a program, okay, you might working in an organization where they're asking you to build some sample prototype on MLOps pipelines. So even though you have a good knowledge after completing this particular program, but what if you can able to provide your mentoring support, documentation, supporting you to fix the bug, consulting for you, right? Otherwise, there's another categories of participants who do use technical job support in a different reason. So we do have a people's, let's say after completing this program, they're applying for various different job roles. They want to work as an existing data engineers, maybe data scientists, or maybe ML engineers with MLOps skills. Or there are some lead roles also available. And let's say you have at least 2 to 3 years of experience, you can apply for MLOps engineering roles. Otherwise, let's say you have a 5+ years of experience, you can also apply for MLOps lead engineer, MLOps specialist, architect kind of roles, which definitely comes with huge package. So we do help our participants as part of technical job support to prepare a resume, because resume preparation is part of it. And again, we take this opportunity into picture. We started discussing about and providing a roadmap for our participants in order to discuss on top of a job description. So we have a discussion on a job description. We try to understand what is the current background of that particular person, and we try to provide a suggestion whether this particular job description works for you or not. What are the things that you need to prepare? How does your interview rounds will looks like? What does a project discussion would looks like? Those kind of stuff, providing a roadmap for participants. So this is it. And then comes our advanced plus plan. The same features, you get bonus reattendance opportunity, but instead of 6 months of job support, you get 1 year of job support. And again, the most unique feature about our advanced plus plan is instant access for our course. What do you mean by instant access? Let's say you're signing up today. You might say that, okay, I have signed up today, but I need to wait for next 15 days to get started with our program. Not like that. Let's say if you're registering for our advanced plus plan, you get instant access to our previous batch recordings. I mean, we are just done with our previous batch last 3 weekends ago. So you'll be getting immediate access to those recordings in the next 24 hours. You can get started with the recordings with support will be provided. And once 1st of July comes into the picture, you can get started with our live sessions once again. So you don't want to waste your time. You can get started right now itself if you register for our advanced plus plan. Let's say if you're not from India, if you're joining from US or UK or any part of the world, so your pricing will look something like this. So our advanced plan start from $599 only, and we have our advanced plan starts from $499, and our basic plan start from $449 only. Okay, and again, but till now, for all the time that you guys are waiting, right? So it won't be a fun providing any surprises, right? Obviously, people who have joined this particular demo session, they're going to get an awesome discounts to register for our actual program. So you're going to get a discounted offer till 22nd of June only, strictly 22nd of June. Here are the discounts that we have, and again, strictly we have just 5 seats available right now if you go and check out our platform. So what are the discounts that we are offering? There are two kind of a discounts that we are offering, which would definitely benefit you. So one is a direct discounted offer on top of our basic or advanced or maybe advanced plus. You can able to use our coupon code. You can get maximum of a 10% discount on our basic or advanced or maybe advanced plus. So you can use this particular coupon code that I'm displaying here. Maybe you can take a screenshot, or maybe I will just display it in the chat window later. So you can able to use this coupon code to get maximum discount of 5%, or maybe on advanced plan 5%, or maximum of 10% discount on our advanced plus plan. Alternatively, if you don't want a discounted offer, you can also take a no cost EMI offer, a maximum of 6 months tenure. For a basic plan, 3 months tenure. For advanced or maybe advanced plus, you can get maximum of 6 months tenure. So this offer will be valid for till 22nd of June. So what is this no cost EMI offer? So you understand what the EMI offer is. Let's say you're registering for our basic plan, which is costing 32,999. Let's say you're going for an EMI offer, you'll be paying an additional interest rate. As part of a no cost EMI offer that we are offering, you don't pay any additional interest rates. So let's say you're purchasing an advanced plan, which might cost you 34,999. So you'll be exactly paying 34,999 without no interest. You won't be paying any interest, but let's say 34,999 divided by 5, so you'll be paying an average of 5K per month with no interest rates. So that's a no cost EMI offer that we'll be also providing till 22nd of June. So don't leave this offer. We have already conducted 2 demo sessions last Saturday and before Thursday, and we have almost sold all our seats, and we just have 5 seats available. It's time for you to become a specialist in MLOps and upgrading your career and making sure you have a most secure job. And why do you think Citron Technologies is the best organization to get started with this particular program? And we've been supported and supported by government of India, incubated in PSG STEP, and been awarded in various international stages as a best startup award in 2018, part of Activate program, and we've been represented ourselves in many different international stages. And this is not our first batch. So for this year, this is our 4th batch. We are getting started with this 4th batch for this year. And you can also check out our feedbacks. I will be also sharing you a PDF. In few minutes, we'll be also having a detailed discussion about the curriculum, what we'll be covering in this particular program. You can also check out previous batch feedbacks who have attended our MLOps sessions. How did they feel? I am going to be a trainer anyway for this particular program. So I'm going to make sure it's going to be fun and a lot of knowledge anyway. You can also check our participants testimonials here, and you can also decide accordingly. Okay, saying that, let's have a discussion quickly on a curriculum that we're going to cover in this particular program. So anyway, I'm going to share this particular PDF in few minutes in our chat window. You can also utilize that one for registration, downloading a curriculum, and access to free ebooks. Okay, so don't leave this meeting. So still we have some time for us to discuss on a curriculum, and where I can able to provide you free ebooks for you to download and asking a couple of questions. Okay, let's get started with our curriculum quickly. So we have totally 13 modules here, 1, 3. So our module number 1 is Introduction to MLOps. This is where we'll be jumping into understanding the complete basics of MLOps. Again, talking about MLOps components, and again talking about not just MLOps. What is this DevOps? What is this AIOps? What is this ModelOps? What is this GitOps? And talking about CI/CD in production case study, understanding let's say understanding various different tools that are available in different industries, understanding various different organizations, how do they build their architecture on Azure, GCP, AWS, or maybe using, let's say, open source tools, for example, right? So then comes module number 2, Introduction to ML and MLOps stages, for example. So this is where we're going to talk about the MLOps stages in detail, understanding, let's say, versioning, what is this, testing, automations like CI/CD tools, reproducibility, deployment, and monitoring. So then comes MLOps architectures. This is where we're going to discuss about open source tools and cloud-based tools, talking about open source tools like Kubeflow, Apache Airflow, MLflow, Metaflow, Kedros, ZenML, MLrun, or maybe CML, and talking about architectures on top of cloud platforms like AWS, GCP, or maybe Azure. So then comes module number 3, Introduction to Git, so which is a complete hands-on module. This is where we're going to start doing a hands-on on top of Git, understanding how to let's say push, pull, and commit your code, for example. So then comes module number 4, introduction to CI/CD. This is where we're going to cover DevOps tools on top of all the different cloud platform with hands-on project, DevOps and tools on top of AWS with project, GCP DevOps and tools with hands-on project, Azure DevOps and tools with hands-on project. Then comes module number 5, Dockers and Kubernetes services. This is where we're going to dive deep into Dockers and Kubernetes from basics, understanding how to Dockerize your ML model, how to deploy it on a Docker service, how to deploy it on a Kubernetes service with hands-on project. Then comes module number 6, Kubernetes deployment strategy. This is where we're going to also understand how to deploy your ML models on a Kubernetes service running on cloud platforms. Then comes module number 7, introduction to model management. This is where we're going to dive deep into data versioning, code versioning, experiment tracking, model registry, model monitoring tools on model management tools, especially open source tools like MLflow, right? How to deploy ML stack, how to build, try and deploy your ML models through MLflow, talking about tools like DVC, using tools like DVC to version your data with hands-on project, understanding Git large files. Then comes module number 8, feature stores. This is where we're going to dive deep into what is exactly feature stores, different kind of feature stores that are available like SageMaker feature store, Vertex AI, Databricks, Tecton, and talking about very famous open source feature stores like Feast, where we're also building our own feature store, talking about how to build online or offline feature store. Then comes module number 9, Cloud ML Service 101. This is where we're going to dive deep into each and every cloud. This is where we're going to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline level 4 architecture on Amazon SageMaker Studio and Vertex AI on top of GCP, and again hands-on project on Azure Machine Learning Studio. Okay, so then comes module number 10. This is we're going to talk about Kubeflow, how to deploy a Kubeflow stack, and how to build open source ML pipelines on top of Kubeflow stack, which runs on top of Kubernetes. Then comes module number 11, introduction to model monitoring tool. We have a separate module for model monitoring tool. So this is where we're going to talk about different SDKs which will be supported by AWS or Azure or GCP. Then talking about using one of an SDK to monitor in your ML models, which is in a production. Then comes module number 12. Here we also cover automated ML tools. I'm talking about the commercial tools which are available like Vellahi, maybe Azure or NetBeam.ai, for example. Then comes our final module, module number 13, the post-deployment challenges. This is where we're going to talk about what happens after you're deploying your ML model. Post-deployment challenges related to ML engineering, software engineering, challenges related to deploying your ML models to edge devices, and using other open source tools like Evidently AI in order to monitor your ML model in a production. And if you further scroll down in this PDF, you will get the skills that you're going to master from this particular program, starting from DevOps, Git, AWS code commit, AWS DevOps tools, Azure DevOps tools and MLOps tools, open source tools like Kubernetes, MLflow, DVC, Evidently AI, Kubeflow, and such tools. And if you further scroll down, you'll get all the tools that we'll be covering in this particular program actually. Okay. Saying this, in the same PDF, you can get the pricing related informations for both USD and INR, and you can also check some frequently asked questions, and you can also check our glimpse of our happy participants who have completed our programs previously. Okay, saying this quickly, I'm going to share links in a chat window. Here we go. So I'm going to share 3 links. The first link is actually a registration link, and second link where you can able to download the PDF, the curriculum that I'm displaying my screen, and the third link, as we promised, a place where you can able to download a free ebooks. And below is there a contact number. You can contact me. Let's say if you have further questions to ask. Let's say if you want to understand how your career how your existing experience works. Let's say you're trying to migrate to your MLOps field, or if you're an existing data scientist, you want to understand how it works for you in the future, you can also contact me, we can have a discussion. So I'm going to share these links in a chat window. Here we go. So once you click the first link that I shared in the chat window, you'll be redirected to a screen which will look like this. You'll be redirecting to a platform called Townscript, basically a registration platform. Here you can get again the same information that I displayed in the curriculum. You'll get a poster, and here if I hit read more, you can get the detailed curriculum from module number 1 to module number 13. You can get more information here. And if you hit book now, you'll be redirected to a screen where you can able to start picking up a ticket that you'd like. Let's say if you're from India, you need to select basic for Indian participants. I'm looking for advanced or Indian participants, advanced plus for Indian participants. Otherwise, if you're joining outside India, So in international participants, if you like to choose basic, go for international participants, advanced for international participants, advanced plus for international participants. What are the seats that you could able to see? It's the only limited seats that we have available. So don't miss this opportunity. And the second link, once you click, you can able to download the curriculum. Okay. Saying this, so now I will be opening a session for Q&A. I will answer a few questions from you guys. Then I will go back and I will also see what happened with my production model deployment. It should be deployed at this particular time. Yes, you can see that my production model has been deployed. I will be also showing you how to generate predictions from it. So now I will open officially a session for Q&A. You can unmute your mic, you can talk to me. Otherwise, you can also try to mention your questions in the chat window. In both the way, I'm going to answer your questions. Please go ahead and use the opportunity to talk to me. Hello, Ahmed. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help. If you want to talk to me, you can just unmute your mic.
Hi, sir. This is Sanjay.
Hi. Okay. Hi. Am I talking to Sanjay?
Yes, yes, sir. So
Okay.
I was just curious, with all these things, is it possible with this curriculum, we
Yeah.
are able to deploy these machine learning solutions, over a on-premise device? Like there are
Definitely.
GPUs and other accelerators, training devices available from NVIDIA. So, is it
Exactly.
possible to deploy those solutions locally?
Possible, Sanjay. So what happened? So you can able to see that here we are not just talking about the cloud platforms. Let's say we are using AWS or Azure or GCP and open source tools. Let's say if we are talking about Azure-based DevOps tools, right? Azure has their own DevOps plan. Still, your automation can be, I mean, all your DevOps the MLOps pipelines can run on Azure, but only the deployments can happen on your premises. That could be a one option. Otherwise, let's say if you want to completely eliminate the cloud, but still you want to use complete open source tools, yes, you can go for tools like Kubeflow, or let's say we can able to use some other workflow orchestration tools like ZenML, or maybe ML flow you could able to integrate, or maybe such other tools like CML, for example, you could able to use, especially for on-premises. I mean, I'm trying to mention if you want to completely eliminate the cloud, but you want to completely stick to open source tools, yes, it's possible, Sanjay. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And I was also curious, will you be providing the recording and the repository link for the project that you demonstrated
Yes,
today?
definitely. Because so folks, okay, so our sessions are live hands-on sessions. It doesn't mean that it's not a webinar, like you just come and listen and go what I build. No, it won't work like that. You'll be building projects along with me. What are the projects I will be building on my screen? You'll be replicating on your screen. That's how the program works. Okay. So as I mentioned already, the live sessions are going to start from 1st of July, and you'll be receiving an access to the recordings on every Monday. Let's say every Saturday, Sunday we'll be having a session. Every Monday we'll be receiving a recording. So that's how it works. Yeah, I'm going to answer the next question that I got from chat window. Meantime, if anyone wants to ask a question through audio, please unmute your mic. You can get started. Okay, Nitya asked a question. How would you support with CV preparation for UK, and what kind of connects you have with UK clients? Do you have a job placement guarantee on your program? Any, and I would like to connect separately on a WhatsApp and discuss on this. Okay, so our job support does work like this. Okay, so let's say it's not something like, okay, so we have, so we do provide job updates. Job updates are pretty much different than job support. You don't want to get confused with that. Once again, let me just go here. So we do have a technical job support, and we have a job update. Job updates are pretty much different. So we have connects with corporate startups and other organizations around the world. We do provide job updates. It doesn't mean that, for example, let's say you paid a basic or advanced plus, saying that, okay, so let's say for example you complete a program, and let's say you got a job in your hand after completing a program. No, it's not such kind of a fake promises that you want to make. So but as I clearly explained, so we take our efforts in streamlining and providing a support in where you're applying for a job, the way you're preparing for a job. It may be the job role that you're applying for that we have published in our groups, or it may be the job role that you're applying for that you have got a references from, in both the way. So our goal is making you prepared for that interview and having and let's say feeding you a confidence. And consider that let's say you have a 2 to 3 years of experience, let's say you have a job discussion that you're coming up with. So we will be having a complete detailed description before you applying for a job, checking with your resume and ensuring that what you all learned from this particular program. Additional to that, what's your previous experience, how you can able to pull back your experience with your the next job, and again making sure what kind of a project that you're mentioning in your resume, how does your discussion will looks like in your interview process, considering that. So that's how our preparation works. Yeah. So let's go out to the next question. If you guys have, please unmute your mic, you can talk to me. So someone was asking, what is the duration of this course? Vimlesh, our program is basically a 60 hours program. It's going to start from 1st of July. It's a 7 weekends program. Otherwise, we can say a 60 hours program. So it's going to be for 7 weekends. We can say hardly 2 months program it is. Yes, folks, please unmute your mic. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. If you have any questions, unmute your mic. You can talk to me.
Yeah, Sharad, is it possible to cover all the tools within 2 months?
Yes, definitely. Yes, because it's not our first batch. We are already covered our last 3 batches. This is our fourth batch. So definitely it is possible, 100%. And again, please don't consider that. So it is not sessions just on the weekends. So we have a more time that you will be spending with us, including a live sessions on weekends, along with the sessions on debugging sessions during on every Tuesday and Wednesday. And again, you can ask the question: what if I'm not available on Tuesday or Wednesday? How does the support works? So it doesn't mean that okay, support is only on Tuesday or Wednesday. So let's say throughout the week we do provide a support, and again, but we need to have some fixed time so where people can make their mind and they can join a session. But in case if you're not available on Tuesday and Wednesday, we do provide a support for you guys till you complete our live sessions. Yes.
Monday there is no support.
No, let me just repeat my question once again. See, we do provide you a support till starting from a date. Let's say you're signing up today, right? And let's say you're signing up for Advanced Plus plan. Starting from today till you complete your live sessions, there is a support that is being given for you, right? That includes Monday, what I'm talking about. But we need to have some fixed date for debugging session. Those dates are Tuesdays and Wednesday. If people have some fixed time, fixed mind, they can attend the sessions. But what if some busy schedule, you didn't attend the debugging session, but you need a support on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Yes, we do support you guys on that day. Yeah.
So this support will be there for 1 year, right? For example,
so
after 2 months, if I'm trying to work on any model.
Sessions are different. Okay, let me just come to that. Debugging sessions are different, and your job support, that is different. Yeah. So job support.
I'm not talking about the job support.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my practice. When I'm practicing something after 2 months, I'm working on a project.
Yep.
So if I'm facing any errors, or if I want to debug something, still do you provide?
Yes, that comes under a technical job support. That doesn't comes under a debugging sessions. So debugging sessions are something that has been done while you're attending a sessions actually. Post you complete the program, then you will be having job support actually. So as part of a job support, the same things that you mentioned, let's say after completing a program, let's say you're working on your project, maybe you're building your own project for demonstrate your portfolio, maybe you're building a project for your client, you need some assistance in that, you need some documentation, right? So, but as part of a job support, definitely we don't build a project for you, we don't build end-to-end project for you, because that doesn't work. We don't program for you, that doesn't work. It's a purely an assistant, a guidance, a mentoring, making sure you push your project further. Okay, so we have a question from Vimlesh. He says, I have a 12 years of experience in IT and how it helps. So definitely, I mean, so Vimlesh, let's say if you're someone who is part of ML project building process, let's say, are you someone who is data scientist, data engineer, data analyst, ML engineer, DevOps person, or someone who has some basics of data and AI industry? So definitely this is a program. As I defined, what makes an ML project really successful, right? Do you think having an ML model would definitely bring a success? No, it's not, because having an automation, having a pipelines, moving your ML models to production, building a new versions of it again and again, automated retraining, automated deployment. So where MLOps comes into the picture. Yes,
Hello.
folks, I'm going to spend a few more minutes. Yes, please go ahead.
Sure, this is Prashant
Uh,
here. So, couple of
Hey,
quick
Prashant.
questions.
Yeah, please go
What
ahead.
is the average learning hours you would you would say a student goes through in the 7 weeks of duration?
Can you please repeat your question if you don't mind? Sorry, I initially missed a few seconds of your questions.
Okay, no problem. I'll repeat once again. So, what is the average hours week on a weekly basis that a student needs to dedicate to complete this hands-on over the 7
Okay,
decades?
so it's the per weekend, it's an 8 hours. It's an 8 hours program. So it's going to start from 7, let's say from India, it's going to from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. That's a 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday, definitely including breaks. So definitely we don't have a break. So it's going to be 8 hours per weekend. So putting together, so totally we'll be having around 60 hours. Otherwise, we can say 7 weekends. Yeah.
Okay, and would there be any a student is required to do an offline learning after those live sessions, or the live session good enough
I mean,
to
so we'll
capture
be
it?
covering, as part of all the 13 modules. We don't provide any. Okay, so this module we don't cover. Just go and watch the pre-recorded sessions. No, it's not like that. Every module, every topic that we have mentioned in the curriculum will be covered through live sessions itself.
okay.
Okay, all right. And how long these video recorded sessions will be available for the students? I mean, later
So
on, let's say.
you'll be having an access for next 1 year. Yeah.
Okay, okay, got it. And the last question: do you also teach?
Mhm.
There's a lot of industry demand on the continuous data and associated machine learning and deployment. So,
Yeah.
do
So
you?
basically, yes. So you're talking about both continuous data and continuous training, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So as I discussed, once again, let me just mention, uh, every organization has some maturity level, right? They go from level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The level
Right.
4 is what exactly you're talking about, right? A completely automated MLOps pipeline. I have mentioned
Right.
already, it's an automated data preparation, automated model training, automated model evaluation, automated model deployment and monitoring. So that is the level 4 architecture projects that we will be building on all the cloud platforms. AWS will be building one project, Azure one, and GCP one. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome. Yep. I guess someone else is also talking, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
hi. Yeah, so please do mention your name.
Yeah, I'm Gilbert. I have a project which moreover it's education AI model which involves more of this. So I want to ask if I can speak to you one on one anytime I have your number.
Yes, please do call us in this number. Once again,
Yeah.
I'm going to share this links in the chat window. Yeah, so okay, folks, I have shared the registration links
Okay.
once again in the chat window. First link is for registration. The second link is for downloading curriculum. The third link is for where you can download a free ebooks. And below is my contact number. Please do contact me if you want to have further discussion about this particular program. I'm here to help. Okay, so in the meantime, if you're going to ask for the question, I'm going to quickly open my production ML model and I'm going to show you how to generate a prediction. Same process. I just go to my ML model, copy my endpoint. I will just go to my notebook over here and simply I'm going to replace my endpoint name. That's it. So reminding things exactly works like a magic. So that's it. So now what I did, I just replaced my endpoint with my production endpoint name, and I could able to run this model as it is. And this does works exactly like my dev ML model, but you can see there's no much difference in the prediction results. It's exactly 8.42 previously. It's generating the same thing. So now because I really satisfied with dev, that's why I go into core pipelines. I could able to approve my ML model to be deployed to production here. That's it. Yeah, perfect. Saying this, let me know if you guys have any more questions. I'm here to help. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. Ahmed asking, can you share with us the recording videos of this? Yes, you will be receiving a recorded videos of this demo session by tomorrow.
What is the
I'm going to
discount code?
spare. Sorry, Okay, discount code, perfect. 1 second. Yeah, forget to show you 1 second. Yeah, so you can just share a screenshot. Otherwise, let me just share in the chat window. So basic and advanced. So that is MLOps 05 PSI. Yep, I have shared the discount coupon for both advanced or maybe advanced plus advanced and basic and advanced. So I'm going to share the coupon code for advanced plus in the chat window. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so people who want to sign up for no cost EMI, please do ping me. So because there's some unique links to be generated for a no cost EMI offer. So definitely no cost EMI after to be has to be climbed through your credit cards. If you have credit cards, yes, you can able to climb a no cost EMI for you, but from starting from 3 months tenure to 6 months tenure. Perfect, folks. Please let me know if you guys have further questions. Please unmute your mics and you can just mention your questions in the chat window so I can start answering that. Let me also check if you guys have any mentioned further questions in the chat window.
Shad, let's say if we are not able to join in July, what is the next batch?
So our next batch will start from end of September, but the dates are not exactly finalized on that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but usually what happens, yes, but so one update which I want to mention, so definitely there are a lot of changes that's going to happen starting from a pricing structure, everything from the next batch. I mean, if you are planning for that, just see what, so how it works. Let's say even like as part of a bonus reattendance opportunity, even though if our pricings are changing in our next batch, there's no additional upgradations that you need to do. Let's say people who are registering for this batch with advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, they get an again a free opportunity for next batch to completely take our program for free actually. So people who take advanced or maybe advanced plus as part of a bonus reattendance opportunity, they can rejoin our September batch completely for free. Okay, Raju asked a really a good question. Okay, so there are a lot of platforms where they climb job guarantee program and what is so much different than us. Okay, so the first difference is in our curriculum. The first thing we would suggest, please do compare our curriculum with other programs, as specifically to our MLOps, and again the kind of a structure of our program. Because starting from live sessions, starting from every weekend to debugging sessions that we provide. And again, even though consider that for a worst case scenario, a participant has missed 50% of a live session, some maybe had some immediate, like let's say a job, maybe something he couldn't able to take our live sessions completely. So in case if he is part of our advanced or maybe advanced plus, he can retake our program completely for free again. So even though our participants who might have missed the session are considered that let's say if you want to revision those codes once again in our next batch, or maybe you want to learn a new updates in our next batch completely for free, so you can retake this program once again, right? So that will be another added benefit. And again, as part of our people who take advanced or maybe advanced plus, as part of technical job support and resume preparation, so what we are trying to do is really unique. So here, let's say, first I would like to evaluate, I want you to evaluate, so if someone says a job guarantee program, consider the various things it might work. Consider that if someone takes this program, it's completely, I mean, someone takes this program, registered for advanced or maybe advanced plus. Let's say if I'm offering a job guarantee program, something like that. Let's say if a participant has never completed our program, he might have attended just 3 weekends program, and now he's asking for a job guarantee. How does this work? So a lot of scenarios, there are a lot of things that might go wrong. So we don't want to make such kind of a fake promises if someone is promising for a job guarantee program. But what we are trying to make a promise here, let's say as part of our technical job support, providing a clear-cut roadmap and having that confidence by yourself to clear any kind of an interview rounds. It may be along with our job updates that we are providing from our side, or maybe the job the job updates that you have from your side, I mean your own references, for example. So one more specific unique things that we do. So first, let's say if a candidate is looking for upgradation or maybe migrating to a new job after completing a program, step number one, first we have, let's say, one consulting round with the participants. First, we try to understand what is current experience, in case whether he has any background of somewhere he is part of ML, whether he is data analyst, data engineer, has whether he has taken any programs, even if he don't have any work experience. Does he taken any data science courses or maybe something else? So first we evaluate that. So then after completing this particular program, we first step we take a resume preparation into the consideration, and then we decide what are the previous experience that he can able to pull up in his resume. Because let's say you might be having a 6 years of experience and you don't want to leave that 6 years of experience and you don't want to go for MLOps. All we want us to carry our experience with us to the next position that we're going, right? That's how it works. So we try to analyze that, and then we suggest which position might help you, right? Do you want to go for data engineering or data science or maybe ML engineering? Or do you, whether considering your experience and what you learned from this program, whether ML engineering works for you, whether MLOps lead engineer works for you. Consider that you might be having a 15 years of experience. So what would be the best option? Let's say you're coming from data science background. I would suggest go for MLOps specialist or architect. And again, we take job descriptions. We have a detailed description of detailed discussion of a job description. And again, we compare the job description with your resume. Does it matches or not? Then we give insights for you to prepare. And again, how this interview round is going to be. Let's say if you're going to attend this particular interview round, and how does a project discussion would look like, what this organization might expect apart from what you have mentioned in this particular resume. So that's what our thing is going to be as part of technical job support for the people who are looking for migrating to the job, right? So that's how it works basically. So that's why we are so much unique. Yep. Thank you so much, Rose. I'm going to spare 4 more minutes, exactly around 9:30 for me. Here, please let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm going to answer you guys. Okay, I'm going to share the registration links once again in the chat window. The first link is for registration, the second link is for the curriculum, the third link where you can download a free ebooks, and below is my contact number. So don't miss this awesome program. So we have this awesome discounts ending till 22nd of June. Just go and grab your seats, and we have very limited seats. So we don't take, I mean, this is a purely hands-on program. So we do have limitations on our seats. So considering, because a specific care should be given for each and every participants during live sessions and debugging sessions. It would be difficult when we are having a lot of people. So please go ahead and complete your registration as soon as possible before we're running out of the seats, okay? Thank you so much. So Sanjay is asking, Sanjay, can you please share the GitHub link for the project that you have demonstrated? Sanjay, so I mean, we didn't plan for providing a links of the project that we are working on. Yep, I'm sorry about that. We don't have GitHub repositories of that project as of right now. Okay, folks, I'm going to spare 2 more minutes. If you have any questions related to the curriculum, if you have any questions related to the timing, the program, the pricing, something like, just feel free to mention your question. Please go ahead and download this particular PDF, and you can able to gain most of the things that we have discussed in this particular program. You can able to check it out here. It may be curriculum, it may be the pricing structure, it may be the previous batch participants feedback. You can also check those informations here, and you can also find my contact information over here if you want to contact me. Okay, it's time. Thank you so much, folks, for spending your valuable time in your demo session on MLOps specialization course. So our program is going to start from 1st of July. Register for our advanced plus plan. Get started in the next 24 hours so you can come prepared for our actual program. Okay, so just get started. Don't miss our awesome session and verify limited seats, and offers are going to expire on 22nd June. Yep, and if you have any questions further, please feel free to call me, text me anytime, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much, and bye.